Hello সবাইকে. This is my first ever foray into podcasting or discussions. Recently, Warfaze celebrated their 40th anniversary here in Melbourne, Australia, and I couldn't pass up the chance to sit down with one of the most premier songwriters of our generation, Mr. Babna Karim. Lots and lots of songs, Warfaze songs that you hear have been written by him, so I had the immense pleasure of hosting Babna Bhai here and talk anything and everything songwriting, studio work, bass playing, musicianship, Warfaze's first 3 albums. It was a fantastic discussion and I hope you enjoy it as well. Here it is. Let's go. Welcome, Babna Bhai. How's it going?
Oh, it's going. Like we were talking, ঘুমের মধ্যে জাগার মধ্যেই আছি আর কি. Anyway, the context is এখানে Warfaze's সাথে tour করছি. So breaking off a little bit, and I'm here with Saif.
Thankful. I'm massively thankful for you. First of all, congratulations to Warfaze for 40 years.
Thank you.
It's not a mean feat. It's fantastic when a longevity, especially in this industry and in this sector, is probably one of the most hardest.
Oh yeah, and also given how hard it is to take music as a profession, right? So and keeping it alive for so long, and we'll talk about it more. And I have to credit Tipu for that.
Absolutely, the way Tipu Bhai has handled and kept the name and the dream alive for so many people, for so many fans.
Absolutely.
Generation and generation of fans. It's very commendable. কথা যেহেতু বলছি, like how does it feel for you? I mean, you've traveled to a different continent to be part of the band.
Yeah.
And being part of a 40-year anniversary world tour. Like how does it feel for you?
Well, it's super great, and I'm really thankful for being able to join the band. I'm not the 40-year anniversary শুরু হয়েছে actually 2024 US tour দিয়ে. So that's where I live, Houston, Texas. So it was fantastic. They did quite a few shows, and I joined a few of them. So exhausting holo, and at some point it becomes really exhausting. Especially আমার জন্য, কারণ আমি তো আসলে কাজ করছি, কাজ করে on the
constant theater মধ্যে না থাকলে it's very difficult.
Well, on the weekdays I work, and then on the weekends I was doing shows, and then you know very well how that goes. তুমি তোমার শো শেষ হওয়ার পরে তো শেষ হলো না, and then after show party শুরু হলো, and then you.
What are the after show parties like nowadays?
I don't know if I can talk about it here, but well, অনেকে আসে যারা organizers, তাদের সাথে যারা থাকে তারাও আসে, and then we just hang out and we do songs again, just to have fun, different songs. But by the time we're
গানের কোনো শেষ হয় না,
গানের শেষ নেই তো আসলে. তো by the time we're done, it's like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not that young anymore. So this happens like every concert, and then afterwards they get to go to sleep and I get to go back to work, right? And then repeat and rinse and repeat.
Well, once a rock star, always a rock star. So
man. That's right. That's right.
That's great. I know we'll talk more about the purpose of this podcast is a bit more musician oriented. We'll talk about songwriting, and it's such a big pleasure for me. Like it's one of the creme de la cremes of songwriters from our country to talk and try to pick your brain about songs, because we're talking about Warfaze and 40 years, and a lot of the songs, it's like, I don't know, please don't take offense with the term that I'm going to use. It's like a greatest hits tour. Like Warfaze is 40 years, you celebrate by singing the best songs that were written. And a lot of the songs were written by you. And you have heard Warfaze singing these songs
with yourself on stage, without yourself on stage, on YouTube. How does it feel now? Like, I saw you the other day on the side stage listening to Polar singing some of your songs. Like, how does it feel?
It feels really good, of course, because it's like songs written so many years back, and just to be honest, যখন গানগুলো লেখা হচ্ছিল, for example, the first album, the songs, আমাদের ওই genre was so different at the time from what was happening around ওই সময়টাতে, যে in my mind at least, maybe others had different view of it. In my mind, and on a few interviews I said the same thing, which is, I didn't even remotely think that it would be this popular.
Okay. We'll get back to that on definition of popular and how the scene was back then, and how it was perceived. How did you get to know of the perceptions of people? Because back then the media was a singular form of media. It wasn't as diverse as now. Because you talked about the first album, and also I don't want this to come across as an interview. You have not applied for a job.
Okay.
I have not either. Let this be a discussion. You can ask me anything that you want to ask as well.
Okay.
But basically, we will be talking more about yourself as part of the songwriting journey in Warfaze. We'll talk about RBR. We'll talk about your later works and the beautiful twist that came at the very end with your musician angle and how you have changed yourself, and now you're a guitarist. So so we'll talk about that as well. But because you talked Warfaze and your first album, I'll go back to, so thanks to Milu for this book. There was 2 lines that really got my eye, and I would like to quiz Babna bhai on this one. I'll just read a bit from this and then ask you. একদিন বিকেলে কলাবাগানে কমলদের বাসায় অনুশীলন চলছিল। একই এলাকায় থাকতেন বাবনা। হঠাৎ তিনি সেখানে উপস্থিত হন। First question, হঠাৎ উপস্থিত হন, you need to answer me as to how did you end up there? বসে বসে কিছুক্ষণ গান শুনতে থাকেন। বাবনা নিজেই এই গানগুলোর বেস গিটার বাজানোর চেষ্টা করবে কিনা জানতে চান। কমল ও টিপু অবাক হয়ে জিজ্ঞেস করেন, তুমি কি বেস গিটার বাজাও? বাবনা না সূচক উত্তর দেন, কিন্তু তিনি বাজানোর চেষ্টা করবেন বলে জানান। কমল ও টিপু বাবনাকে একটা গানের লিস্ট ধরিয়ে দেন। I'll stop here.
Okay.
Do you remember, or how much of this do you actually
No,
remember?
it sounds like a quiz. If I'm getting it right now. No, I'm just kidding.
Because I want to put myself in that situation, because I take a lot of fun out of this, trying to know how this happened, and if you remember.
No, I do. So আমি তখন first lane, second lane, third lane, where Niloy Dara যেখানে থাকতো, then if you remember that, so third lane এ Chameleon নামে একটা বাসা ছিল, দোতলা বাসা. It was a pretty famous, like নামটা famous ছিল আর কি, Chameleon. And ওই বাসাটাতে আমরা ভাড়া থাকতাম. So this was 86 time frame. তখন একটু পিছন থেকে আসছে আর কি, তখন
backstory.
তা আমার তখন that's another story. And anyway, at the time আমার একটা ভাঙাচোরা একটা গিটার ছিল আর কি, and Notre Dame কলেজে আমার এক friend Afzal, ওর নাম ছিল Afzal, he taught me a few chords. So my first few chords actually was from him. And আবার এলো যে সন্ধ্যা, এই গানগুলোকে.
How did you get into guitar? Like, how did you get into the Western music?
So ছোটবেলা থেকেই, অনেক ছোটবেলায় আমরা পুরো ফ্যামিলি ফিলিপিন্সে ছিলাম।
আচ্ছা।
So my childhood memory, actually early childhood memories from Philippines.
Philippines has a massive rock scene, and I believe it had a lot of rock scene back then.
But this is like the early 70s. So my dad was doing his PhD, and all of us were with him, and so ওখান থেকে Carpenters ওগুলো ছোটবেলায় শুনছি আর কি অনেক। তারপরে বাংলাদেশ আসার পরে তখন মামি সিং ছিল, আব্বা মামি সিং এ প্রফেসর ছিলেন। তো আমাদের তো অ্যাক্সেস ছিল, যদি কেউ নিয়ে আসতো ক্যাসেট, তো আব্বা কনফারেন্সে গেলে পরে ওখান থেকে বনি এম নিয়ে আসছিল।
Whatever was playing on the charts.
হ্যাঁ, so বনি এম শুনে আমরা তো ছোট বাচ্চা কাচ্চা আমরা, and then ABBA পরে he introduced ABBA, and I still love ABBA actually.
ABBA is songwriting masterpiece.
Wonderful একটা, এখনো ভালোবাসি ABBA. And then একটু বড় হওয়ার পরে got into John Denver, Kenny Rogers selection অনেক শোনা হয়েছে। তারপর আমরা ঢাকায় চলে আসছি। সেন্ট জোসেফসে আসার পরে then I met Rosetta Warfaze is a Josephite band, and that's where I got introduced to heavy metal. So it was a late introduction.
It was more, this is where I should go.
Yeah. So exactly. So it was very different. But and then একই সময়ে I was listening to many other artists that আমাকে influence course actually. More than hard rock, ওগুলো আমাকে অনেক influence was. Hard rock, of course, Simon and Garfunkel is one of them.
It is very interesting. আপনার কিছু কিছু গান is very singer-songwriter type. And now I can make the links. আপনি যখন বলছেন John Denver, যখন বলছেন Simon and Garfunkel, there's a lot of America in there. There's a lot of Dylan in there. আমি জানি না আপনি Dylan শুনেছেন কিনা খুব একটা,
but
অনেকগুলো গান it feels very songwriter songs, singer songwriter যেরকম হয়. Now it makes sense, but having said that, you also wrote Ek Dui we'll have to figure that out as well.
So ওভাবে শোনার ব্যাপারটা ওগুলো ছিল, বাট আমাদের ফ্যামিলিতে we had a lot of good singers, radio শিল্পী ছিল, টিভি শিল্পী ছিল, but they were like more traditional. নজরুল, রবীন্দ্র, ছোটবেলায় আমাদের musical education is family থেকে. Okay. So we grew up listening to নজরুল এবং রবীন্দ্র আধুনিক, বাংলা আধুনিক, কলকাতার গানগুলো যেগুলো আর কি. So I would say I was probably the আমাদের ফ্যামিলিতে আমার কাজিনসরা earlier বড় যারা ছিলেন, they tried learning guitar. They did a certain amount of it, but later আমি যখন গিটারটা নিয়ে আসছি বাসায় আর কি, when I'm going back to 86 and
yes,
that line that you said, so Notre Dame তখন আমি সেন্ট জোসেফে ছিলাম একটা বছর, ক্লাস 10, সেখান থেকে কমলদের সাথে আমার পরিচয়, বাট ওর সাথে ওঠা বসা নটর ডেমে গিয়ে হয়েছে। সো নটর ডেমে তখন আর যেহেতু কমল কলাবাগান লেক সার্কাসে থাকতো, so I used to go watch their practice.
So Kamal bhai was already playing.
কমল বেস বাজাতো তখন, কমল বেস বাজাতো, টিপু ড্রামসে ছিল, মীর আর নাইমুলের কথা তো আমরা শোনো না হয়তো অতটা, বাট
Mark one lineup of Warfaze.
Exactly. ওরা ছিল গিটারে আর কি, দুটো গিটার্স, and then মীর চলে আসলো আমেরিকাতে, তখন there was a gap. Kamal, they were looking for a bassist, and Kamal needed to move to guitar. Kamal is a wonderful bassist actually. So my learning of bass guitar is from him. Anyway, so ওখানে গিয়ে then I used to watch them do practice. আর Warfaze এর একটা ব্যাপার, আমরা অনেক আর্টিস্ট ট্রাই করছি, অনেক ছেলে পেলে সবাইকে ট্রাই করছি। তো as part of that trial, maybe they thought, আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে, let's try him. and so Kamal bass guitar আমাকে ধরাই দিল, plus some equipment. And
what equipment was there?
Very little. That was the guitar. ওটা বোধহয় ইফতিকার ভাইয়ের গিটার ছিল, Waves এর, and then Kamal bought it from him, and then I borrowed it from him.
Amps
chilo, yeah. I don't know if you can call it an amp, but
it's just a speaker,
tape recorder with a speaker, but you can stick your jack into it and play it. If you play it too hard, it'll probably get blown. So but that was a lot for us. And so next 6 months, I tried to pick up all these different songs, and I remember, I think Deep Purple কিছু গান ছিল, Yure Hipper একটা গান ছিল, and I think they liked the progress that I was making. I was like, okay,
Acha.
you're in.
And what type of response did you get from your family when a Uriah Heep or Deep Purple was playing out of the stereo? Because তখন তো Discman আর Walkman তো তখন ছিল না যে আপনি headphones শুনছেন. Everyone else got to hear what you were hearing.
No, we were, as a family, we were open. We were open, just as an overall family. Our নিজের family, my parents never told me, actually, পড়াশোনার ব্যাপারেও, they never forced us to study hard, even though my dad was a professor. And all he did was he created an environment where we were not disturbed too much from studying. Yeah, we environment create করে দিছিল. So আমরা যে গান বাজনা করছিলাম এতে তাদের কোনো, they had no concerns. It's like, be a good person and পাশ করে ফেল করে আসো.
Simple.
Simple.
Great.
So no, they took it positively, actually. Yeah.
ওই জ্যাম গুলা কারো বাসায় হতো
লেক সার্কাসে আমাদের প্র্যাকটিসটা হয়তো হলো কমলদের বাসায়। সো এটা ছিল
ড্রাম সেট ছিল
minimal drum sets.
Loudness wasn't an issue.
Oh yeah, so that's something we are super grateful to Komolder family, which is super loud, right? so and so uncle যে আমাদেরকে সহ্য করতো দিনের পর it's not like we just did it for few hours after hours, এগুলো হচ্ছে constantly, years after years, right? So ওই সাপোর্টটা অবশ্যই was critical, and at some point people do become tired.
Yeah, of course. I mean, come on.
So, yeah, after years you become tired. Yeah, so I think at some point we could see that when we were grown up, it's like so.
And this is 86 we're talking about.
So I'm talking about my engagement. 84 Warfaze হইছে আমার engagement ছিল.
So আপনি যখন জয়েন করছেন, by then Mir Bhai and the Mark 1 is not there anymore.
মির চলে আসছে তখন আমেরিকাতে, নাইমুল তখনও ছিল. So we did our first show, 87 Flood Aid, I think it was.
Yeah, I have some questions for that.
But এখন আমার memoryতে that's my known first show. So it's
because it has we are talking about Flood Aid, and I've heard this story a lot of times. And যে Flood Aid আপনাদেরকে, was it Flood Aid or was it Boishakhe that you were asked to come up with original numbers?
That was much later though.
Oh, okay. So let's talk about the Flood Aid concert. Where was that?
Flood Aid ছিল সোনারগাঁয়ে ছিল, I think.
Indoor.
আর
কি করছিলেন? What was your set list?
I have to remember that. Yes, so Iron Maiden করছি আমরা অনেক. Iron Maiden অনেক করেছি। এর মধ্যে I think Deep Purple ছিল, Iron Maiden ছিল, ওগুলো আমাদের one of the favorite ইয়াগুলো ছিল, Black Sabbath, যে Iron Man,
বাংলাদেশে Flood Aid, Black Sabbath, 88.
So 87. So
how was the response? Do you remember the crowd response?
I don't know. We were too busy, too nervous to play. We just played. So I'm sure others can comment to that better than I do. But I have. But 87 আমাদের ফ্লাডেড করলাম, ওইটার লাইন আপ ছিল টিপু, কমল, আমি, নাইমুল আর রেশাদ।
আচ্ছা।
রেশাদ তখন ভোকালিস্ট ছিল। That was I would say probably our first successful lineup.
Last I heard of Rashad Bhai, he was a successful chef back in Dhaka. And I think he had a bit of involvement with feedback as well later.
মাঝখানে তো ফিডব্যাকের সাথে মনে হয় ছিল। So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Flood Aid. How many songs? 5, 6?
Can't remember. It wasn't too many because there was a lot of bands.
Who were the other bands, if you remember any names?
I think Winning was there.
So Tipu Bhai was playing with Winning then?
I think he may have been. I can't remember. I thought there was somebody else.
So ওই সময়টা তো ধরেন উইনিং এরও কি বাংলা গান মানে অ্যালবাম বের হচ্ছে তখন?
না, আমরা তখন সব ইংলিশ গান। বাংলা গান much later. Some of it. But that's a different story.
And then the Boishak happened after?
So it was later, right? So by that time, something else happened to my life, and I took a break.
Yes.
So 87, my brother, he was a
Yes, we know the.
GD pilot.
Yep.
Yeah. So
If you can, if you want to share, you can share it, and it's absolutely.
yeah, it's a
fine if you don't want to.
significant event that actually shaped a lot of the things I wrote, which eventually, well, you know,
Mhm.
Warfaze did that. So 87, early on, you know, March time frame, I think. He had a crash and he passed away. So yeah. So 87, and then
It's a big trauma.
got a big, huge trauma for the whole family, right? So, and I was getting ready to we both were HSC. So as you can imagine, it was like a lot of things shattered, right? So just coping with that situation, and you know, I was close to not appearing for HSC, but my friend, your friend, আমাকে help করছে তখন ইফতুন কথা বলতে হবে, ইফতু actually, you know, হাতে ধরে পরীক্ষা দেওয়া প্রিপেয়ার করছে, you know, so that I can at least pass.
Yep.
So
yeah.
So that happened, and then I took a break from Warfaze, of course, because it was I was not in a mindset,
In a state of mind.
in a state of mind to pursue any of that. But the bigger questions came to my mind. Which one did that? So, and I took a break, and Warfaze continued with which one did the Warfaze Rockstar in Dhaka is actually the so Tushar in Dhaka, Tushar অনেক সময় আমার জায়গায় বেস বাজিয়ে দিত আর কি। তখন আমি তারপর বুয়েটে ঢুকলাম, but my seclusion continued আর কি, and it was a pain for Warfaze in a sense, because একটা তো মেম্বার দরকার হয়, they're sharing মেম্বারদেরকে between the different bands, চারটা ব্যান্ডের মধ্যে, but at some point I was actually বুয়েটে limited at the scoping, আমি শো করছিলাম।
আচ্ছা।
এবং মাঝে মাঝে কমলকে নিয়ে আসতাম, টিপুকে নিয়ে আসতাম টু প্লে উইথ আস। তো কমলের কথার সাথে তো শো করছিস,
why not do it?
ওইটা করছিস তো, তা আমাদের সাথে করছিস না কেন? But I just wanted to have a control over when I did it and when I didn't want to do it. And because of that, I think that setup worked for me. So ওই সময়টাতে, and I was not কেন করছিলাম আমি জানি না actually. ওই সময়টাতে I started to write. ঠিক আছে, ওই সময়টাতে I started to write, and ওই writingটা I was not doing it for anyone. Perhaps I was just venting, you know, myself. তো তখন ওই সময়টাতে আমার এই বিচ্ছিন্ন হবে গানটা লেখা। It was heavily influenced by those big questions.
Yes. The unanswerable questions.
And a second composition that was happening at the same time was Ek Dui. And if you look at the content, they're both a little dark. And so একই source থেকে দুইটা লেখা actually, একই emotion থেকে, but expression entirely different. But একই emotion থেকে দুইটা গান লেখা।
It's interesting, the vibe of both the songs are so different. The lyrical content and is probably similar.
But darkness টা ছিল দুটো, কিন্তু
one is a dark ballad, the other one is of course a heavy metal thing. And that is also a very interesting combination that you showed in those early years, just going from one end to the other, right? Writing one ballad and then writing one heavy song. How did you used to come up with stuff like that? Like it's pretty extreme.
I don't know if it was consciously done, but it just came to me that way.
It was just happening.
It was just happening that way. So অনেক কিছু consciously করিনি, and then looking back, maybe you can put something, you know, just maybe that's why I did that. But ওই সময়টাতে, you know, it just came to me that way.
Yeah. That's what tends to happen. Like there's one phase in life where just stuff comes out.
And we'll talk about it, you know, when we start talking about maybe writing songs. One of the things I advise people is, from my learning, don't force yourself to write something like life. You're in different stage at different points in life, right? So if I was at a different point back then, and I wrote from where I lived in my head back then, I don't live there anymore. And so my writing now, even though mechanically might be similar, but I live somewhere else in my head.
Yeah.
And I try to write from where I live now. It would be completely different content.
That's a very interesting angle, because what I might ask you is, when you hear those songs now,
Yeah.
as a songwriter, what are your observations, Jacho? Are you still happy, Jana? The innocence is still there. I still love the innocence, the way that I wrote that song with. Or do you get hypercritical? Nah, I should have done this, or you just...
No, I just accept it, because the thing is, again, I think this works for me, which is I never try to go back where I used to be. I am evolving, and that's what I want for myself. I want to evolve. And wherever I am in the evolution in my mind, or emotion, even kind of emotion. So, ওখান থেকে লিখলে পরে the things are genuine.
Yeah.
And then your stories are genuine. And so if it makes sense to you story-wise, perhaps it'll stick with others.
Okay. So you think of your songs as a journey at that point in time of
It
your
is
life?
entirely that.
Okay.
So I have something to say.
Yeah.
There are different ways of writing music, right? One is commercial music likhte gele, even if you're not trying to say anything, you say something.
Because you have to move a product.
Yeah, you gotta move a product, and there is a scope for that. আমি ওখানে ফাংশন করি না আসলে, and that's why লোকজন যখন আমার কাছে আসে যে গানটা লিখে দেন, আমি তো লিখে দিতে হবে। So
on demand লিখি না।
লিখি না, আসলে লিখি না। So I then channel them somewhere else, like they do it. So but for me, I have something to say, and I say it.
Yeah.
And so I have to write from where I am.
Yeah.
তো জোর করে মাঝে মাঝে লেখার চেষ্টা করছি, I don't enjoy it. Because I don't do it professionally. Right?
Yeah.
So what's the point?
It takes a different skill set to do that.
Right.
And
exactly.
if you don't have to, then why should you? Now, this is not a personal question. I think we're talking about, you see your catalog and your output as a journey of the mindset that you were in. So you were writing when you were feeling, and that was at that point in time.
Yes.
Do you think struggle is needed for songwriters to come up with, or something that the mind wants to do, or something that you are aspiring to do? You need to have some sort of a goal at the front to come up with better songs, or...
Two things. আমাকে সেটা মনে হয়, একটা হলো যে আমি হয়তো রবীন্দ্রনাথের এক্সাম্পলটা দিই। If you look into this person, Rabindranath, he is actually a philosopher. Now, what he has to say, expressions were in different forms, right? Golpo, literature, Kavita, Chobi. That's like the tip of the iceberg. But the tip of the iceberg, there's a huge foundation to that person, right? So, আমার প্রথম জিনিস মনে হয় যে you have to expose yourself, ওই যে নিচে যে পার্টটুকু, you have to expose yourself as much as possible, intellectually, emotionally, as many things as you can cover. You only can write serious content, bokasi, from your own experience. If your own experience has a slice of this life, then you can only write from there. Everything else is not going to be as strong.
So the more life experiences you
exactly.
have,
if you haven't been in love, you can write love songs, but it won't sound as convincing.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And the same thing happens to everything else. So একজন আমাকে মনে হয় একজন রাইটারের জন্য to expose themselves emotionally, not only that, intellectually as well. যেটা people like Rabindranath and other people, যারা এই ধরনের, there was Rubbi, I think, was an astronomer, mathematician, and many different things. So when those people write, they have a certain content. which won't come out of somebody who just has a very, very narrow slice in life that they have experienced. So আমার কাছে মনে হয় ওই ব্রডনেসটা যতটুকু সম্ভব, সবার ইন্টারেস্ট সব কিছুতে নাই, কিন্তু যতটুকু সম্ভব to expand your, that spectrum. আচ্ছা, এটা একটা. There was something else I wanted to say, and this happens to me more often nowadays, and I forgot.
That's okay. So if we go with that train of thought for musicians as well, something that we were always being told that you need to listen to as much music as possible, and access was very limited back then. But we still made the effort to go to Rainbow Gully and getting things. and Kabir Bhai is probably one of the biggest pivotal character in our industry,
educating us in what to listen to, and সেটা কবির ভাইকে আমি বিশাল একটা আমাদের সাকসেসের পিছনে বাংলাদেশে ঢাকায় আমাদের সাকসেসের পিছনে এডুকেশনের পিছনে কবির ভাই মতো মানুষ ছিল pivotal, like you said, যেগুলো জীবনে শুনি নাই উনি বলতো যে এটা শুনে দেখ।
The fill-ups. Do you remember the fill-ups of those cassettes? আপনি যাইতেন বলতেন আয়রন মেডেন দেন, কিন্তু ওখানে 70 মিনিটের মধ্যে 50 মিনিট 20 মিনিট খালি উনি ওনার মতো কিছু একটা দিয়ে দিতেন।
এটা শোন, সেটাই।
How good was that? কিন্তু which is interesting, now there is access to music 24/7, but for some odd reason it feels like
overload of information, perhaps.
Probably. Chord structures. Now this is interesting because apni prothome bollen je when you went into the guitar, you learned some chords, and obviously we all start writing songs around those chords. Is that what happened around that time, or is that how the first albums, most of the material came out, or were you pushing yourself to learn more or to go somewhere and see someone and get motivated for? How were you arranging back then?
So between 87 and onward until we had our first album, I think it was 90, right?
91.
91. And 97 আমরা শুরু করছি। So এটা একটা ইন্টারেস্টিং ঘটনা বলি একটু। সেটা হলো যে again I was একটু seclusion ছিলাম, and so প্রথম থেকে chord structure গুলো was
obviously what you were listening to.
Yeah, what I was listening to, and it was simpler. But there was still, we were introduced to Malmsteen at that time and all that. So diminished chord was you will hear that in Ek Dui and all that. So gule esche chord with the structure, and I was sort of doing it by myself, a basic skeleton darky. Of course, the whole song. আমরা Warfaze পাঁচজন মিলে করছি, কারণ
ওটা I'll ask how did songs come and get recorded in the form that we get to listen
and we
to
must
now?
talk about it because every member of the band had something to contribute. I had a skeleton, but that's not what you're hearing.
Exactly, because if you guys think about the big hits, the Ek Dui, Ontho Jibon, Babna Bhai, you're not a guitarist there. I mean, you came up with the song, but these songs had riffs. And I'm pretty sure you did not write those riffs.
I did not,
Which means this was jammed out, properly arranged, properly inputted by everyone.
একটু বলি, যেহেতু we are on the topic, ওই সময়টাতে রাসেল আর সঞ্জয় ছিল, they were like 15-16 years old, they're very young. Main leadingটা হয়েছে between Tipu and Komo. They led the whole arrangement thing again. So I gave the tunes and the lyrics in a basic structure, but I did it on acoustic guitar, right?
And you were just giving them the verse, chorus, and stuff.
Yeah, just as if you're singing, like Simon Garfunkel. Okay, so example, বসে আছি. When I did it, I wrote it as a simple song, right? Tune, everything is the same.
I'm sorry, but that dominant seventh came out of where? মানে বসে আছি একটা কাঁচা রোদ.
No, it was exactly what I saw. I just wrote what I saw.
It just goes to an absolute different family of chord over there. How did that happen?
Yeah, I don't know how it evolved, but some of that just came to me, right? So it just came to me that way. And I remember I was chade bishtir pore, chade would say, what you hear, what you're listening to is exactly a description of what I saw. That's all I did. It's sort of like Van Gogh. He just drew what he saw, right? Nobody.
No,
I'm just saying an example.
No. An artist is an artist.
Yeah. So some people, I guess, do that, right? So they just write what they see. But we got to them. High, low. I didn't do that. Guess who did that?
Sanjay Bhai.
Sanjay. Yeah. So that was his massage of the song. And then, of course, guitar.
Yeah, man, it starts with full-blown arpeggio. Man, it sounds like
পুরোটাই কমল। হ্যাঁ, ওখানে টিপু কমল মিলে ওরা বুঝাইছে জিনিসটাকে। ওই লিড অ্যারেঞ্জমেন্টে লিড করার প্রথম অ্যালবামে it was টিপু কমল, and then Sanjay added এই যে একটা ছেলে হাঁটছে আকাশে লাস্টে যে স্ক্রিমটা, I didn't have that in my original plan. So his voice.
And how did you take that, all these inputs to your song? Like, did you have further inputs, or you were just, man, this sounds awesome?
It sounded unnaturally good. So I was like, well, I didn't expect that.
Okay.
But it was fantastic. So I remember Shandha Shamay, Sanjay voice to start pore, and then I heard Sheshe ki korlo eta. Oh my God. So they are their contribution is as important in making.
Absolutely.
So everybody did something unique. And that's why I think we were lucky and all that came together. And it just happened. Yeah.
Did Sanjay Bhai join after you joined?
Yeah. Sanjay, আমি অ্যাকচুয়ালি যখন আমি সেক্লেশনে ছিলাম, যখন তখন জয়েন করছে, and I was like, who are these two kids?
What a voice. I mean, this is just outrageous.
Yeah. He set the standard for future generations.
Absolutely. Yeah. And back then, no auto-tune, no nothing, and even if you still hear those crappy recordings, and we'll come to those recording sessions, he's still on point. In tune.
সবচেয়ে বড় জিনিস হলো having sort of the sense of taking আরেকটা জিনিস হলো আমি বলতে চাই সেটা হলো you can't just bring, especially in those days, এখন মানুষের ears are অনেক কিছু শুনে অভ্যস্ত, ওই সময়টাতে এই ধরনের গান শুনে অভ্যস্ত ছিল না মানুষ, right? You cannot just take a foreign element and just bring it in and just slap your lyrics on it and expect it to go. Now আমরা consciously এই জিনিসটা, so I say that contextualization of the music to our culture, ওইটা আমরা consciously করি না, বাট হয়েছে। And এটা হওয়ার পিছনে হয়তো কারণ এটা হইতে পারে বিকজ আমি শুনে বড় হয়েছি আধুনিক রবীন্দ্র আর নজরুল আমার ফ্যামিলিতে। হ্যাঁ, সো ওইটার একটা ইনফ্লুয়েন্স ছিল যখন আমি ওইটা করতেছিলাম, কনসিয়াসলি করিনি, কিন্তু এটা হয়েছে। ওই কন্টেক্সচুয়ালাইজেশনটা না হইলে পরে it would have been a problem. তারপর আমরা যখন অ্যারেঞ্জ করছি ওই কন্টেক্সচুয়ালাইজেশনটা আমরা রাখছি। হ্যাঁ, so how much of it each of us were conscious of it? আমরা তো
of course
we were বলতে পারো street musicians, right? আমরা নিজেরা শিখে kids, yeah. Nobody told us any of this, so it's just common sense হয়তো কাজ করছে যে না এখানে এটা হচ্ছে না।
Is that something you miss now when you're writing songs, that innocence? Because back then, let's do it, this is what it sounds well, but now you think of something like a bridge 3 times before you.
True, but I try not to. I try to keep the process the same. আমার যেটা হয় যে I let go when, so this is how I work. Like, if you want to become good at something, there's a 10,000 hour thing, right? And I say 5 বছর, তোমার 5 বছর একটা জিনিস ঢুকে তোমার বাজাতে হবে. Once it becomes second nature to you, then you don't have to think about it, right? তখন while you're composing, don't think. And composing doesn't come scheduled. It can come at any point, any time. It sometimes comes while I'm driving, and I have a cell phone, I just record it. But I try not to think. So I just do it, and then you insert your thinking in designing the story flow. How would it flow? লেখার সময় তাই করি এখন আমি গল্পের ছলে লিখে ফেলি কন্টেন্টটা and then it's like okay that's the story and how do you flow it yeah so
Okay, I'll come to track listing. How were track listing decisions made for the albums that you were a part of? Like, is that like মানে ক্যাসেটের প্রথম ট্র্যাক কি হবে, সেকেন্ড ট্র্যাক কি হবে, সাইড বি কি হবে?
এটা mostly Tipu decided a lot of it because I wasn't আমি actually compose করে তারপরে হয়তো I was not too involved with
Didn't worry about
worry about how it would flow but it's a very important decision making. Tipu or Komal Bine again they were the ones
because it took skill to track list it properly in those days when there was a cassette and the biggest sellers were side A first and side B first.
yes যে consideration করতে ছিল কারণ মানুষ তো শুনবে প্রথম গানটা শুনে সেকেন্ড গানটাতে ইন্টারেস্টেড হবে রাইট সো
আর দোকানেও গান বাজালে প্রথমটা সবসময় বাজাবে,
এক্স্যাক্টলি
সেকেন্ডটা হয়তো নাও বাজাতে পারে।
হ্যাঁ কারণ তো টেপ তো ফিজিক্যালি যেতে হবে আর কি হ্যাঁ সেটাই তো আমার এটাতে ইনভলভমেন্ট কম ছিল again Tipu or Komal mostly first album second album was a little different because Obak Bhalobasha করার সময় কমল অ্যাভেলেবল ছিল না আমরা যখন করছিলাম পরে আসছে ও
Okay,
so most of the songs were actually driven by Russell.
I've heard this
Yeah.
a lot, Jay. He took most of the responsibility of
Yes,
arranging
yes.
and playing, and which is
Both keyboard and guitar and he did a phenomenal job and we all recognized that. Komal recognized that. Komal had his input when he came over but we were all supportive of Russell driving it.
And I had a question for that, like that. But I'll come from the first album again. I read somewhere it was completed within a month. Is that true?
ওটা ছিল ফার্স্ট অ্যালবাম
হ্যাঁ, আমি ফার্স্ট অ্যালবামে একটু ফেরত যাচ্ছি।
আচ্ছা
That was completed in a month, মানে কি the writing process or the recording
whole
process?
thing. So let me go back to how it actually happened, and then you'll see why it had to be done in a month. So initially, চারটা ব্যান্ড মিলে একটা অ্যালবাম করার কথা ছিল।
It came from Sargam.
It came from most probably Sargon, yeah, or maybe not. Maybe there was a different request later, but I think it's a practical need because there was not enough songs. And I was missing from, of course, the scene. I didn't even know any of that, right? Because I was secluded. তো ওরা তখন মিনেসোটা চলে আসবে পড়াশোনা করার জন্য সো আই ফিগার্ড আচ্ছা গিয়ে দেখে আসি কারণ দেখা হবে না অনেকদিন পরে তারপরে সো জয় ইসলাম জয়দের বাসায় ইন ঢাকার জয় হ্যাঁ ওদের বাসায় গিয়ে আড্ডা দিতে গেলাম আড্ডা দিতে গিয়ে তারপরে আমি জানতে পারলাম যে ও আচ্ছা album হচ্ছে but that's interesting and again like I told you I didn't write my songs for anything
Yeah. You just wrote them. They just came out.
It just came out and it happened while I was gone and they were doing their thing and I was doing my own little thing তারপরে একটু ভয় ওদেরকে শোনালাম যে I have a few if you guys want to listen to it so I think বিচ্ছিন্নভাবে একটা প্রথমে শোনাইছি and so then they're like আর কি আছে and then একটি ছেলে and then one after the other I had a few already so তখন আমরা ডিসাইড করলাম I think we have enough of our own so we'll do our own album আর in Dhaka actually অনেক গান সবসময় ছিল মাসুক is a wonderful composer and he had plenty already so anyway we decided to have separate albums at that point I think Badal Bhai of Sargam also wanted that so he was pushing for na shobai eksathe korna.
Do you ever remember any interactions with Badal Bhai? Because he's also another legendary figure.
Yes.
Who had a severe amount of input to make the industry where it went.
Absolutely. I'm grateful to Badal Bhai because ওই সময়টাতে আমরা নীলম ভাইয়ের সাথে অনেক ইন্টারাকশন হয়তো শিখতেছিলাম নীলম ভাই তখন was light years ahead of us right so বাদল ভাইয়ের সাথে ওখানে দেখা আমার ওখানে আই গেস অন্যদেরও হয়তো বাট বাদল ভাই আমাদেরকে অনেক সাপোর্ট করছে in terms of who gives chance to heavy metal kid, knowing that they're probably not going to be successful at all.
Unless you really like that
You really-
music.
exactly. So he was very generous in that sense, and he's like, "Ashok, এসে করো." So he was very supportive. He was very supportive and very grateful that he gave us that opening.
So he had a studio.
Sargam.
হ্যাঁ,
সারগামে উনি বসতেন, উনি রেকর্ডিং করতেন। তো
উনি নিজে রেকর্ড করতেন।
নিজে রেকর্ড করতেন।
4 track probably, 4 track or 8 track.
8 track, হ্যাঁ, 8 track। তারপর ড্যাট আসলো, ড্যাটা করলাম। So it was fun.
So do you remember anything of the recording sessions of the first album?
I do. আচ্ছা, এক মাসের কথা বলছিলাম আমরা এখন। So they were leaving, right? So we had only so much time before Eid. ঈদে বের হয়ে আবার।
হ্যাঁ, it তো is a hallmark.
হ্যাঁ, ঈদে বের করতে হবে, so এর মধ্যে শেষ করতে হবে। I remember while they were recording, I was actually writing.
Oh, so it was a
Well,
continuous process.
It was a
চলছে।
continuous চলছে, হ্যাঁ। So I had some ideas in my head. ওরা কখনো বলেন এটা নিয়ে লিখ, এরকম না।
Just লিখতে থাক।
সাধিকার লিখছি, সাধিকা তো মাসুকার কমলের। সাধিকার লিখছি, that night we went to Komal's house and they were playing and আমি একটা জিভায় বসে আসলাম, okay, give me a pen and paper. And I just wrote it that night and it was ready.
Did you, this might be a funny question. Did you used to sing the songs the way they got recorded later on? Because it would be really interesting to hear you singing Shadikar.
Yeah.
And then
No, আমি হাম করে আর কি। And then most of it happens in your head anyway, right? So
okay.
yeah, so we were in a rush to get it done. And so studioতে বসে আমি লিখতে একসময় অসুস্থ হয়ে গেলাম, because it's just constantly doing that. So I had to take a break. But it got done with everybody's help.
How was the recording studio? What do you remember of it?
Oh, it was very, very simple. Simple recording. What would I say is a takeaway from you had to play it right the first time.
Yeah, there's no overdubs.
Yeah. So I mean, you can, but it's just takes so much more time.
Tape নষ্ট হয়।
Exactly. So that was one thing. The other thing was that আমাদের sound বের করতে পারতেছিলাম না আমরা, because it was such a new thing. Yeah, it was such a new thing that I think at the time Mobin ছিল তখন, হ্যাঁ Mobin ছিল, Mobin recording করছিল, but so he was our best bet anyway, because he also played,
Great.
versus somebody else doing it who has no idea, right? So ওইটা একটা বড় চ্যালেঞ্জ ছিল, যে আর actually everybody was on top of everybody. উইনিং এর অ্যালবাম হচ্ছে ওই একই ঈদে, রকস্টারের অ্যালবাম হচ্ছে, ওয়ারফেজের অ্যালবাম হচ্ছে, ইন ঢাকার
যে মিশে যায় নাই তখন।
There were accidents later actually. বলতে যাচ্ছিলাম যে there are horror stories as well.
Do you remember any?
Yeah, one very very heartbreaking horror story later.
এটা কি অবাক হলো সেটা? আচ্ছা, হ্যাঁ।
Yeah, Bhalobasha just he was probably very tired doing his work, and he just
didn't press record.
No, he just recorded over
somewhere
one of the most beautiful lead that Russell played. He had to reproduce it. That's what you hear from Obak Bhalobasha, but it was not the same.
Of course.
Yeah. So we lost that forever, and it was a wonderful. Don't take it. It was wonderful. Yeah, we were like, yep, that's it. And then where's that?
What was your bass rig during those recording sessions? Do you remember? First album aage kori, because there's a marked difference of sound sonically in the second album. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, first album so I didn't have a bass guitar. I didn't have a bass guitar ever. And I always borrowed a bass guitar. প্রথম bass guitarটা কি ছিল আমার খেয়াল নেই। Second bass guitarটা আমি সুমনের কাছ থেকে ধার করতাম। Yeah. And then so I did not have a bass guitar. I did not have a rig.
And was it going directly to the console, or did you have an amp that got mic? Do you remember? It's fine if you don't remember.
I don't remember exactly how we did it, but it may have gone directly into yeah. So
how do you rate your bass playing now if you ever listen to those?
Listen, আমি bass play করতাম Warfaze's জন্য when they needed a bassist, okay?
But আপনার কিছু bass playing কিন্তু is not only a bass player in need. There is some stuff happening.
But funnily, I did not play bass regular basis. What I played on a regular basis was acoustic guitar. Yeah, so I would do Don McLean or Simon and Garfunkel, and now I do flamenco, right? So flamenco, I now relate myself to a student of flamenco guitar. I won't say I play, that I'm still learning, and I've been playing it for 20 years. But Warfaze's সাথে যেটা হতো যে যখন শোগুলো হতো, I needed a bass guitar a month ahead, and I would just practice what needed to be done, and I did it, right? Same thing happened for recordings. It's like I say, okay, I need a bass guitar. And then I would do my thing, record it, and then I move on.
Because you were actually, for a very short-term type of prep for recording, there are some songs where you are actually playing lines, not just the notes. So yeah. It sounds very musical, so obviously
there were certain things that were
because second album I've got my notes, like it's a bit advanced, like
কিছু part ছিল যেটা আসলে
there's bass tapping galore in the second album.
Yes, there was, but it was not like I was practicing day and night for a year.
Yeah,
it was more like I was looking into it, it's like, yeah, I want to do this.
Yeah, okay.
And then I picked it up maybe over a few days, and I did that, so
this is very interesting, because first album bass playing is one type. Second album I see more virtuoso stuff coming in here and there, like random taps coming out of nowhere, slaps coming out of nowhere.
We did some of that. But আমার ধরো 30-year anniversary আগে I started to say, okay, people know me as a bass player. Okay, let me spend time on it, and I did. And it doesn't take me a long time to just catch few things, gimmicks and all that, right? So but again, I just don't have time. আমার যতটুকু সময় আছে, I have to focus. প্রতিটা ঘন্টা প্রতিটা আধা ঘন্টা is important to me, because ওই সময়টাই আমার সময়, আর সময় নেই আমার, হ্যাঁ। So I have to
make the best use.
I have to make the best use. So flamenco again. Flamenco takes a lot of my time. It's a difficult art. I've been trying to play it properly for the past 20 years. I'm still not there. It's my assessment of me. And I want to get there. Okay.
First album থেকে গ্রাজুয়েট করে সেকেন্ড অ্যালবামে আসছি, কিন্তু একটা জিনিস অনেক ব্যান্ডসরাই করে সাধারণত, যে সেটা হয়তো হয়নি because you were actually writing while it was being recorded, যে you write more songs and then you pick the ones for the album. Did that happen for the first album, or you ended up with exactly the number you needed to make up time and then you did that, or was there any leftover?
No. First album was different, which is we had barely enough.
Yeah.
Because it was such a short duration of the realization is, I'm Ramadan album korte pari, and we just need a few more, and then we just did enough to get done, and we did it. Second album, we had the first was successful, and then we got inspired by it, and I was like, okay, so second album we had a few choices.
You had more material.
Right.
Before I go into the second album, let's come to the release of the first album. So it was targeted for Eid. You finished it in time. How much were you involved between finishing the album and the mastering, if it actually happened, and then going to the market and what happened in the market and stuff like that? Not really much.
I wasn't involved much because, again, I was too busy with being poete অনেক ব্যস্ত ছিলাম। আমার লাইফে মিউজিক was I had to really fit music into my into my life,
rather than the other way around.
And so I had to really focus on the best value I brought to the table, and then I had to come back to what I had to do for living or studying or something,
So what updates were you getting after the release from your bandmates or Sargam? Like, how was the communication? Je, eta hocche. When did you start to get an idea that this is actually has taken off a bit more than what you thought it would be?
Well, অ্যালবামটা বের হওয়ার পরই তো চলে গেল সবাই, and আমি আর টিপু, সঞ্জয়, আমরা ছিলাম দেশে। কিছুদিন পরে রাসেলও চলে গেল। So the
So
first,
you didn't get to play live that album.
এক বছর পরে things have changed, right? আমরা তো অ্যালবাম করে, especially me, I went my merry way, and I was busy.
Bass guitar.
Yes, I gotta go back to Fuad and do my thing.
Solve some equations.
Solve some equations. Like, that was fun. All right, let's go do our thing. কিন্তু টিপু তো সবসময় আসলে engaged ছিল, so Tipu can probably give you a more nice evolution.
I need a separate session with
For
just
him.
Tipu
Yes, he has
on these aspects.
detailed history of because he was involved every bit of the evolution of many things, Warfaze, of course. But I would say my first realization was Rawa Club একটা শো করার জন্য ছেলেপেলেরা আসছে তখন, they were willing to pay us at the time.
Of course.
And at the time, 40-50,000 টাকা is top band. Top band পেত ওই টাকাটা, and then suddenly this bunch of kids ঢাকা রাও ক্লাবের করছেন বনানী, এখান থেকে ওরা they were willing to pay us a lot of money to do the first album. And তখন I realized, things have changed a lot, I guess. And আমরা ওই শোটাতে বোধ হয় $10,15,000 এরকম ছিল। It's a huge amount for that time.
That's massive.
Massive. This was like 91, 2. We showed it.
Musicians are RAM scale inflation adjust koro, it is not there.
No, yeah, exactly. So it was an eye opener at that point for me. I'm sure Tipu has kept track of it, but for me, it's like, oops, I think things have changed a little bit for Warfaze. তারপর কমলরা আসলো, শোটা করলাম আমরা। তখন থেকে we felt that okay, we're making progress. Next album our offer গুলো আসা শুরু করলো সারগাম থেকে।
So Badal bhai ever,
হ্যাঁ,
did he ever or did Sargam ever come back to you guys, or maybe you were not part of that or you didn't know that, as to how successful it was in the market, how it was? Did you hear it?
I think we were hearing প্রথম অ্যালবামের কত লাখ কপি বেচা হয়েছে, I don't remember.
That's massive. লাখে গেলে তো it's absolutely massive.
অনেক বেচা হচ্ছিল, অনেক লাখ।
For something that hasn't been heard,
Yeah.
for something that is as new as a new baby.
Yeah.
And especially Bangladeshi market, Bangladeshi audience.
Yeah. No, it was a lot of money that I think Sargam made on Warfaze. A lot of money by standard of that time. But I'm sure Tipu can tell you the statistics কতগুলো বেচা হয়েছে, but it was a lot. I was hearing those numbers like, wow. And again, we are very grateful for Sargam আমাদেরকে সুযোগটা দিছে, but Alhamdulillah, they made a lot of money as well.
Well, that's the recording business.
Exactly.
You make money actually with promising new artists, not matured artists.
That's right.
So
next album, Korashami, of course, our remuneration went up significantly.
Yeah.
So on and so forth. Yeah.
Did you get any payments for the first album? Not really.
We did.
Okay.
We did, and I think it was
any contracts signed?
I don't think there was any. I don't know if there was any contract signed, but
no one cared about contracts. They're giving us a chance to record and
exactly. We
release.
were happy. We were simply happy that it's like, oh my God, we have a chance to record now. Yeah.
Okay. আপনার বাসায় after the first album মানে did anyone got to know of the first album or songs that are out on the market and did it ever come back to you in some shape or form?
Yeah, it did.
Anything that you remember?
It did. So I have a tendency to like do things and then move on. And I'm not paying
get the picture.
Yeah. It's like I don't pay attention to what's happening with those things. I move on to something else that I keep myself busy with, and then I hear about that, right? So that's good. But like I would hear about later. কারণ আমাদের স্টিল তখন নিশ একটা জিনিস ছিল না। জননী গানটার ব্যাপারে আমি শুনতাম আম্মার কাছ থেকে যে somebody somewhere told my mother that your son did this song and it's wonderful and all that, and then she would tell me, and she was proud, and she would tell me that এটা শুনে আসলাম, and I would hear from her.
It's a good feeling though.
It's a great feeling because it's a great feeling, and আম্মার জন্য যে করে যেতে পারছি, and she was happy to hear that. It's a great feeling. Most people write about parents after they die.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough to do it for them while she was alive. So.
আপনার কোনো family members were not involved when you were writing songs for Warfaze and recording and this and that and
like okay, yeah, so বালামের কথা বলতে পারি. So first album বালামের একটা কৈশোর is tuned by Balam, and he was only in grade class 7.
That's outrageous.
Yeah. So they were little kids when when I picked the guitar, and we spent a lot of time. আমার ভাইরা এবং বালম বাপ্পি ওর বড় ভাই বাবর জুলি ছোট ছোট ছিল সব, and we spent a lot of time together just jamming and all that. But ওখান থেকে ও ক্লাস 7 এর দিকে যখন আমরা অ্যালবাম করছিলাম, I heard his composition and I was like, I like it. And so I took his tune and I put the lyrics and introduced him to Warfaze. Yes, like,
it kind of came full circle at some point.
So সেভাবে involvement ছিল, and other than that, I guess I was pretty private with my efforts.
Just leave it.
Yeah.
Wherever you're done, you leave it there and then you come back.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to the second album. How much time was taken to do that album? Let's go the recording part and then we will go. How did you write?
Let me. How much time would actually? Let's see. Russell spent a lot of time. Russell had to not go back to America for a semester. He lost a semester, I think, trying to get this.
So he was in Dhaka doing.
He was in Dhaka,
and you.
I was still in Buet, and doing my thing, and I would have the compositions handed over. It's like, this is what I was thinking, and Russell said the script obviously was fun. Tipura mi mile album like move korchilam. Russell was the main driver of all the music arrangement and everything. So yeah, I mean, ওখানে Obak Bhalobasha গানটা, তারপরে everything else, Russell single-handedly pretty much
arranged
almost single-handedly.
There's a very big difference in production of the second album to the first album. Like, it sounds sonically very different, much better. You can hear stuff better. Now, before I forget, let me ask, do you have any idea if the master or the DAT tapes of any of these albums still exist anywhere? No,
I don't. It might. Again, I think people would be the person to contact.
I asked Arshad Bhai for the Rockstrata ones because I was trying to do a remaster of some of these old ones. No, apparently they don't exist, and like their first album doesn't exist.
ওই সময়টাতে ওগুলোর উপর নেক্সট
আরেকজনের কারো একটা
উঠে গেছে, সেটা রেকর্ড হয়ে গেছে।
হ্যাঁ, so the production of the second album is vastly more matured. Was it acoustic drums? Do you remember? It sounds like acoustic with some electronic elements here and there.
So there was triggers used.
Yes.
It was acoustic drums played.
But then it was triggered.
It was triggered
through a sampler.
Yeah. So I remember that. And it sounded so different because when Russell came back after two years or whatever, 2.5 years, he was a transformed musician in terms of first album তো শুধু keyboards বাজানো ও যখন ফেরত আসলো ও একটা ভয়ঙ্কর গিটারিস্ট হয়ে ফেরত আসলো ওই সময় 18 বছরের ছেলে 16 17 18 18 19 এরকম কিছু একটা but you've heard the album so it's and
it's on a different level.
It's at a different level
For 1994, even today, definitely for 1994.
It only took him 2.5 years to become that monstrous of a guitarist. And so we loved what he was doing, and we just let him loose. Do what you want to do. And so some of it may have been, a little hard, but we didn't mind. Just like, go ahead.
So he was originally a keyboard player.
Yes.
Originally means that's how he started.
That's how he started. I didn't see him playing guitar. And then when he came back, he was a full-blown guitarist.
So both him and Romel Bhai were both keyboardists or piano players?
Yeah. Romel is still, he focuses on piano. Russell can do both.
Yeah. Of course, I'll have to touch on the Jibon.
Sure.
And Onno Bhuvan. So Onno Bhuvan is probably one of my favorite stuff that you've written. And it also had Ek Dui in the brackets.
Yeah.
Give me a story as to why that had Ek Dui.
So
was it a sequel of Ek Dui? Is that how you wrote?
Yeah, I think at the time maybe we felt it was cool. So Ek Dui was basically just a sad thing that happens in life. It was again inspired by death of my brother, and Ek Dui Hatchek. There are certain things, I don't want to share it here, but there are certain things that we knew that led to his unfortunate thing. And some of it is corruption. Just simply, not having respect for human life. So that idea made it into that song. But then I had an idea about how, and I wanted to just blend the two. And so it was a dream, I think.
It does start like a dream.
So was there a third?
And that was my next question, because I always thought there was an Ek Dui in Jibondhara, which was the Bhenge Jai, Ghum Bhenge Jai Shopne. But in the CD sleeve, it doesn't say Ek Dui, but I cannot remember how I know that is Ek Dui. But then in the CD sleeve of Obak Bhalobasha, beside Onno Bhuvan, it says Ek Dui.
No, but I think the lyrics gives leads to that, right? The lyrics also has is a nectar gorgon regularly. So I had some continuity of the lyrics so that you can relate one to the other. But it was one dream, one being a dream, one, and then coming out of the dream was what was the name of that? It's been a while.
Onno Bhuvan and
Promotion. I thought it would be just since it had to do with dream and a bad dream.
And of course, rock bands love thematic, thematic albums and stuff.
So we just blended it that way. It could have been made a separate, but maybe the chords were also very close to the other ones.
Ek Dui is probably one of the funkiest Warfaze songs that I have heard. Mane eto space sadharanoto Warfaze গানে it's a busy, it's an all-out attack. ওইটাতে there's a very funky element. Kamal Bhai played very unlike him, but played fantastic. The bass groove was very spacey, very groovy. Did you write that like that, or
yes,
it ended up?
Yes, so I would have a vision for the song. Then I would share it with the band. and then the band would add their view of it,
Mhm.
and then we would go from there. It was not entirely random presentation.
Mhm.
I have a vision of the song in my head.
Yeah.
There's something that a story runs in my head.
Mm.
Yeah, and then I tell that story. This is what I was thinking when I wrote it.
Yeah.
So then they have a sort of a movie visual, like, oh, this is how it's moving. Like Obak Bhalobashaতে প্রথম chord progression গুলো কিভাবে move করবে coming from E minor back to C minor.
Mhm. ওই ট্রান্সপোজিশনটা কিভাবে মানে that's one of the most beautiful songs that has come out from our industry and from your head. But the way the chords are flowing, there's a lot mane. Sometimes I ask, how did you comprehend, or it obviously
We always try to like যে ধরনের bands আমরা শুনছিলাম, ওখান থেকে the influence was.
Yes.
There was a lot of movement on the songs that we were listening to, right? So Pink Floyd বলো যায় বলো, so ওগুলো influence থাকে একটু. But yeah, so I was thinking it would be interesting not to just enter the song and have some transition. And then, of course, Russell takes it and he puts flesh on it. But we always do this, like push it. I go through the story. This is what I'm trying to say in my song. Kind of visual to থাকলে পরে, if you can give a movie, if you can plant a movie in somebody's head, then they can take on that imagination. And then they have their thing to add. Yeah.
talking about visuals, cover designs, logos. Warfaze has gone through some transformation of logos and cover designs. The first album, which is what we can see at the back, the second album had the guitar coming out of the ocean, which is, I think, an Obak Bhalobasha kind of
Yes.
theme, because we can see the beach, we can see the ocean, the guitar coming out.
Absolutely. It was driven by that. Yeah.
The third album had something else, but how much of that, like, were you part of that?
Yes, absolutely. All of us were part of it. And again, Obak Bhalobasha theme, we all had to understand it to put our hearts to it. কিভাবে হবে move করবে জিনিসটা. That was done. Logo was done by Asif, one of our friends. And I forgot the name of the artist who actually did the painting.
I have the CD sleeve digitized. There's a guy called Sohel who runs a website called Bangla CD Covers. I don't know if you've ever
I have not
come across. He painstakingly goes and digitizes a lot of Bangla albums.
Interesting.
When I ask about pictures and logos, I was about to show you the photo. Obviously, wardrobe wasn't
That's right.
paramount for a rock band that looks pretty.
I know, it's like not really. Yeah,
Do you remember this photo shoot?
absolutely. Yeah, it was done. ওনার নাম কি? ইমতিয়াজের বাবা, বেগ
Oh, so Imtiaz Alam Beg's Baba.
ইমতিয়াজ আমাদের ফ্রেন্ড তো, সো ইমতিয়াজ আলম বেগের বাবা উনি আমাদের ছবি তুলছিলেন.
I wonder what this Sargam 200 means, but that would be only possible to ask.
Yeah. So আমাদের সেকেন্ড অ্যালবামে ছবি তুলছে আসিফ. I forgot his whole name, but
let's talk a bit about the artwork, and I'll give a plug to Sohel. Like he has digitized all versions of CDs as well. So this photo shoot looks more coordinated
yes,
than the first one.
yes, it's way more. Quite a bit different. Now,
For a heavy metal musician, you're smiling too much.
yeah, okay, which I do all the time, even now.
But this had an attitude.
Yeah.
Was this done by the same Imtiaz Bhai Baba? Do you remember?
No, this was done by Asif. And it was done খুব painstakingly. Like everybody had quite a bit of shots taken.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it looks like this was planned. And this was the cassette. I remember the cassette B having the purple sleeve.
Yeah, we love this this work that they have done.
It brings back memories. Where was that? Do you remember?
এটা পুরান ঢাকায় ছিল, পুরনো ঢাকায় কোথাও। I can't remember exactly where it was, but wait. My memory is faded, but I remember. এর পাশে কি ছিল? This one was কোথাও ছিল পুরান ঢাকায়, কোটা একটা পুরনো একটা ইয়াতে, of course, you know, it's like yeah. And then actually আমাদের ফটোশুটটা যখন হয়েছে, ফটোশুটটাও ওখানে পুরান ঢাকায় কোথাও, আসিফের হয়তো ওখানে
স্টুডিওতে,
কোন একটা স্টুডিওতে না কারো বাসায়, but he had to bring his all equipment. তখন তো এগুলো difficult ছিল, but somehow he did a great job.
Of course,
with lighting and everything, but he understood lighting. Yeah.
That's awesome. I'll go back to 91 and 94. So those were the 2 years that your first album and second album came out. Were you aware what else was happening in the Bangla Western music scene, or what as we call Bangla band music scene? Were you hearing much? Were you actively hearing anything, seeing anything, getting inspired by anyone?
At the time, I think I would like to say we were the like people that were doing something different. Because it was just a couple of years after we were successful. So I think we were the only ones at the time.
তখন
বাচ্চু ভাই LRB
স্টার্ট করলো সাউথ থেকে।
সো আমাদের ফার্স্ট অ্যালবাম যখন করলাম এই রাওয়া ক্লাবের শোটাতে, ওখানে জেমস ভাই ছিল, বাচ্চু ভাই ছিল, আমরা ছিলাম, এবং জনি রজার্স ছিল।
আচ্ছা, ইমন আর সূর্য
নামটা ভুলে গেছি, দুইটা ভাই ছিল ওরা, বাট জনি রজার্স ছিল আমাদের ফার্স্ট, ওরা শুরু করছে। এন্ড দেন
শুভ পরে জনি রজার্স ছিল, হি ওয়াজ দ্য ড্রামার অফ অর্থহীন।
No, this was like the first
Mark 1.
তারপরে জেমস ভাই ছিল, তারপরে বাচ্চা ভাই গেল, তারপর আমরা লাস্টে করলাম। So Bachu Bhai was happening at that time, you know. Bachu Bhai.
Did you hear much? Like, did you seek out much?
আমরা আসলে একই স্টুডিওতে তো সবাই আসতো, তো তখন বাচ্চা ভাইরা রেকর্ডিং করছিল, আমরাও রেকর্ডিং করছিলাম। হ্যাঁ, শুনছিলাম।
ক্যাসেট কিনে গান শোনা হতো তখন?
না, এমনি মানে শোতে হয়তো শুনতেছি। হ্যাঁ, আমার বাংলা গানের ক্যাসেট শুনে বাংলা গান শোনা হয়নি এভাবে। হ্যাঁ, ইন্টারেস্টিং।
আপনার বন্ধুদের অ্যালবাম যখন বের হলো আপনাদের সাথে, রকস্টারটা অথবা ইন ঢাকা, ওগুলা কি ক্যাসেটে শোনা হয়েছে নাকি রেকর্ডিং এর সময় ওখানে থেকে শোনা হয়েছে?
রেকর্ডিং এর সময় ক্যাসেটে হয়তো শোনা হয়েছে, বাট again I didn't have a lot of time to spend.
You still don't.
I still don't. So I had to be always very careful with my time. এই সময়টুকু আমি কি করবো আসলে? So I didn't have a lot of like cassette শুনে নিয়ে এসে সিক করে শুনে, তা না, আমার কানে আসলে পরে আসতো,
অথবা কেউ দিলে
আসতো। কেন? কারণ হলো I was in the middle of musicians, so একভাবে না অন্যভাবে। আচ্ছা, নিলয় ভাইয়ের ক্যাসেট আমি কিনে শুনছি। আচ্ছা, ঠিক আছে, he was that important. আর এমনি পেতাম হয়তো আমাদের ফ্রেন্ডসের কাছ থেকে পেতাম আমাদের অ্যালবাম গুলো। Feedback. I think feedback.
Ullash probably.
Feedback কিনেশনস, Renaissance কিনেশনস।
কেমন লাগতো ওগুলো শুনলে? মানে তখন তো you were in a different frame of mind. You were, blood was boiling. মানে you were more heavy metal or hard rock oriented. মানে
না, ভালো লাগতো। আমি সবসময়, like I said, I grew up listening to নজরুল, আধুনিক সঙ্গীত। আমার মামারা খুব ভালো গাইতো, তাদের ভয়েসের অ্যাকচুয়ালি কোনো অংশ পাইনি আমরা, but they were really good singers, and so সব ধরনের গানই শুনতাম। Feedback was particularly Feedback, Renaissance, পরে Miles was they were, I loved them very much. তারপরে আমি চলে আসার পরে আসলে বাচ্চু ভাইয়ের রাইসটা বোধহয় তারপরে ইয়া হয়েছে তো এখানে এসে শুনছি আর কি তারপর ওনার গানগুলা
আপনি লিভ করলেন কবে?
95
হ্যাঁ, obviously বাচ্চু ভাই
হ্যাঁ।
when gangbusters mid 90s
জেমস
to
ভাই
80s.
বাচ্চু ভাই ওই সময়টাতে হ্যাঁ I was here at that time.
This is another question that I forgot to ask is, you obviously knew that you had the talent to write songs.
No,
but,
I didn't. But, okay.
But you were writing
I
songs.
was writing something. Yeah.
How did you end up singing? Like, was that something that you wanted? Je ami gan gaite chai naki when you were presenting the songs, someone said, Babna, that sounds good in your voice. You should sing that.
Yeah, so when I wrote this, I already sang. I was singing other things like I don't know, English songs like Simon Garfunkel, Tulchi Gachi, Don McLean, Tulchi Gachi. Into Bangla গান যখন লিখছি, I didn't think of me singing them because we already had a singer,
Exactly,
which is Sanjoy. But some of the songs, I guess, suited well. আমার জন্য. So maybe that's why they thought, okay, we can have a variation. And
did you consider yourself a singer?
Quite honestly, I didn't. And I was like, well, you know, if Sanjay wanted to do that, I would probably happily, you know, give it to him. Exactly. And move on. It's like, yeah, that's fine. Did actually হয়েছে ইয়াতে বিচ্ছিন্ন আবেগে.
Tushar bhai sang.
I did not sing the song. Tushar wanted to sing the song, and I was like, okay, go ahead. And he did a fantastic job, right? So I was like happy. It's like, cool, you did a great job.
But I think a lot of people still think that you are the one who sang that song.
Yeah, and many times I've corrected them. Like,
because there's certain mannerisms which is similar.
Quite the similar issue. But I would think his voice is very different from mine. But I think people normally চিন্তা করে না হয়তো যে তুষার ছিল ব্যান্ডে. So they fall back on me. It's like about the guy singer. But no. So he sang it and he did a great job. And at the time, you know, we were like, you know, Dhaka thing about friends meant everything. And you know, he wanted to do the song, and that's how we were. It's like quarter to the day.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Obak Bhalobasha. In my notes, I asked myself, how did the aha come into fruition? Is it just instinctive?
I think it was instinctive. So the tune was done. The tune was done ahead of time. And normally that's what happens to me. I do the tune first. But
so you do the tune first and then you put the lyrics on?
Put the lyrics on it. So the tune speaks to me. And then I figure out a tune you know, sort of a ধরনের feel. I don't have the lyrics yet, but a feel oh, by the way, I want to stop here a little bit. Remember I was talking about how you only write from this slice of, you know, experience. And again, I lost it. So I'll come back to it. We'll come back to it. It was a subtle point. Anyway, it'll come to me again. So the tune came to me first, and then আমরা কক্সবাজারে তখন সেকেন্ড ইয়ার পড়ি বুয়েটে কক্সবাজারে আমরা যখন ঘুরতে গেলাম 17 of us and just নেমেই I felt that I could hear the you know, sea ocean and our first time তখন ocean-এ যাওয়া that was the first time কক্সবাজারে so first time হিসেবে it really grabbed my attention.
Yeah.
And I didn't.
The vastness of it.
Yeah. I didn't plan on writing anything. Yeah, but as a matter of fact, I didn't even take my guitar, thinking that you know, friends. Anyway, it was silly, but self-conscious. But my friend Shubho, he actually grabbed the guitar and he brought it with him. Glad he did. But I sat down and I felt that I have to write it now, and I wrote it, and it came all together. So I think it just felt right, at the moment. And
Or
again,
was it part of the humming of the tune first, and then it just clicked and it stayed? Do you remember?
it may have been that. I just don't remember the details of how to kick to basic hair. But I think it just felt right at that moment. It can lyrics not the just
Because that is the pinnacle. I feel that is the
Yeah.
pinnacle of the song, where the
it gives you a breathing space to
breathing
take
space,
in.
and also it kind of lets the audience think that they can sing
yeah,
there,
yeah.
which is a very interesting
Yeah.
way of doing it. এটা আপনি না চিন্তা করে
না চিন্তা করে করছি এটা না চিন্তা করে I don't remember thinking about it. I don't remember thinking about anything about the lyrics. And again, I just wrote what I saw.
or what you
Felt and saw both. হ্যাঁ কারণ পুরা গানটার সব আলো নিভে যাক আঁধারে, and I was the sun was dropping, so it leads to your imagination what would happen next, right? So and as it was dropping, it was reflecting ছোট ছোট ঢেউয়ে চুনি ঘিরা পান্না. So it appeared that to me আর কি চুনি ঘিরা পান্না হিসেবে আমি দেখছি জিনিসটা. So to me, perhaps my perception, I was just writing my perception of the moment.
How old were you when you were writing?
So second year would about maybe 21.
Were you in love
22.
at all by then? No. So
The song
that emotion was not.
Not that, but the song is not about.
No, of course
it's not about love. Yeah.
We know. But I was just trying to ask because এর আগে আর কোনো প্রেমের গান লেখা হয়েছিল কিনা আপনার, or whether you went through that emotion at all.
I would say I have প্রেমের গান আমি লিখছি অনেক পরে. And you haven't heard those songs yet.
Yeah.
That's it. But all the songs that people relate to Prem, some of them are songs of caring. Perhaps not quite how I would describe deep love. অনেকে যখনটা দেখে সেভাবে. Yes, it's a song of affection.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say it's a song of deep love. It's a song of remember me. There were other songs of caring and affection, which falls under, the general category of love, but it's not,
The intersex love.
Yeah, it's not
Intergender love.
It's not the deep romantic lyrics.
I think we touched on this, that there's a lot of bass guitar Olympics happening in the second album.
Yeah, there was a little bit of show off, but yeah, I was there at the time.
Just going with the time.
Yeah.
Ek Dui, this song, this is a vastly different vibe.
It is.
Of a song. It's a normal rock and roll song. Rock and roll with blues in there. First of all, why did you write this? And second of all, why did Warfaze pick this for the album? Do you remember?
So
I love this song, by the way.
I would say this is probably one of my well-written songs, even though not too many people have heard it. And I'm surprised you're like the very few that have brought this song up. But in my writing career, I would say this is one of the better written songs, and only because it answers some very deep questions about logic.
And that's what I saw in the lyrics. The lyrics is very heavy in this song, but the instrumentation is light.
It is compact.
Yeah. And for me, I got to hear Warfaze in a very different angle with this song, like the way Romel was approaching the playing. It wasn't the rock and roll style of playing. It was something different. He was trying something different. It had the chorus had the boogie woogie and the rock and roll feel, but apni, you're trying to preach something very heavy with the lyrics. So it was a very interesting mixture.
True. I kept the composition light because it came that way to me as far as the arrangement, composition goes, like the chord structure and everything. But the lyrics is actually heavy.
How did Warfaze receive this song when you first played it?
I had to explain it. Again, it's like you have to explain what's the story behind this lyrics. Once they connected to it, they're like, "Yep, we're doing it." And most people will actually not get it.
Mm.
We knew that. It's not people won't get it. But that doesn't stop us from, you know.
No, of course. Who cares? Who cares about people, right? That's not rock and roll. But I think back to your point, অনেকে এটা শুনে নাই অথবা শুনতে চায় নাই. Probably because it was buried on side B at some point, and no one thought about playing the tape.
Well, it sticks well with you if you can see it as a story. That's the whole thing about writing songs in a story form, that it sticks well with people. Now, the challenge with this kind of lyrics is that the lyrics means nothing to most people. It's like it's cryptic, and so it doesn't stick with them. It acted apart. I think the tune was light enough for people to catch it. If the lyrics was probably different, but I like it the way it is.
Did you guys ever get to play any of the second album material live with that lineup?
Yes. Ocean Club, Amra Kursi, I think we have.
After the second album
After
came
the
out?
second album, yeah.
On the Jibondhara এগুলো করা হয়েছে.
And most people, you have to when a concert.
Of course, concert is just for a specific period of time, for a specific emotion.
Yeah. So, but you at some point maybe we will talk about. So the most of the content of my lyrics from that time was it revolves around few things, of course. Prothom albame. Some of the songs are light, like Boshe Achi Ek Dui, there's really nothing to it except, you know, you're seeing things and you're liking it. And Bichin Navek has to do with deeper questions in life. And, we all have to leave. We know that.
Yep.
We all have to leave. We know that. And yet, remembering death actually gives you a deeper life. Because you don't run after meaningless things, and yet we do. Bhalobasha the Shitgabri. That was the realization that I was struggling with. That I know, we will leave at some point because I saw my brother's death, and yet there is a pull from the superficial things in life.
The materialistic
things. And materialistic things are not necessarily bad, but when you rat race for it, then it becomes, sort of that Australian karagar. And even to this day, I feel the same way. It's like,
in fact, it's probably getting more.
It's probably, and you have to remind yourself that, what are you running after? So we take the shade, আরেকটা shade is philosophical, it's about reality. Onnobhubon ক্রমশ has this, so that's heavily influenced by something that a lot of people now follow. At the time, people didn't even know about it, which is, and I have to talk a lot about it, just how the description happens. Shaman Indian Gichu philosophy explains a lot about how reality happens. And a lot of quantum physicists refer to them as well. Because the whole idea of reality, but through physics now, we've also come to that point, some of you are engineers here, that just the field theory and everything. So all this representation that we see as matter, right, is a human perception that we have, evolutionary perception we have developed, right? But এই কথাগুলো তো yogis bolo, Sufis bolo, they have Maya. So they all come together now. People are looking into it more closely, both scientifically and experientially. So we try to shade the picture on the Jibon.
Were you reading a lot back then?
Yes, I always read a lot.
Yeah, so you're still an avid reader.
I'm still an avid reader. And we surface pore aছি actually. I have a way big list.
Tip of the iceberg.
Tip of the iceberg. ওখান থেকে বের হইতে পারতেছি না because there's so much to learn, right? So, and so little we know. So ওই শেডগুলো দেখবো। আরেকটা হলো এই একা রেখে যেটা হয়েছে যে I feel, and it's one of the things I have in my mind, if I can ever write a book, I would write just one book. And that book would be about nature of knowledge. It's like we have knowledge of nature, but flip it around. What does it mean to know in the first place? So nature of knowledge. তো সেটা নিয়ে আমার সবসময় ইন্টারেস্ট ছিল এবং all this, when I study physics, I'm a big avid reader of physics. When I study physics, and যেটাই পড়ি বা যেটাই experience করি, I always have that in my head. What does it mean to experience that little thing that I did experience? So সেখানে এই গানটা was the first step to explaining what it means to be rational. So that was the first attempt to, because there are some questions asked of me. That why do you believe certain things? And that made me think, why do I believe certain things?
The 1 + 1 is 2.
And then so that was my first
foray.
First, exactly, foray into that field, and also my answer to myself first. That this is I think so. I think it's still valid after all these years. And some of you may know Godel. He's a logician, and in the past few years, I've been studying him, and he has helped his mathematical formations of certain things explains or further illuminates on the nature of knowledge. So this song has to do with that, and
so it started your activity of
yes, because somebody asked me certain questions, and I had to. We're rational beings, right? So we're rational beings. So the only basis of our conversation is rationality, and so but how far can you take it? What are the limitations? So we and it's still valid. When I wrote at that time.
You're still proud of it?
I'm still like, it's like, I wouldn't change it. It's
good.
So good.
I want to know of another songwriter, what motivates you, what shakes you, what triggers you. And a lot of that is with what you are reading, what you're exposed to, what phase of life you're in.
Yes. And I think fundamentally when we're born, we have a certain disposition. We have a certain way of being with the world, and because of that way of being with the world, you actually attract the things you want to experience. You invite your life is how I look at it. Because if you're the type who cannot pass by somebody who's in need and you get stuck, well, you invited your own trouble.
Yeah.
Right. And some people can just walk away. They don't invite that in their lives. So, but I think we're born with that.
Let's go to the next album, the last album that you're part of, Warfaze, before we go to the latter part of your career. Obviously, this was not done through Sargam. This actually went to a bigger record label, a much more commercially huge record label. Any recollections of
Jibondhara?
Of making that shift to a more commercially bigger record label? Was there, and this is probably going to come in my questions later on, like, was your songwriting or the tracks that were picked?
Was it fundamentally shift receptor?
And it feels that way.
Yeah. We felt, I think it was too hard, too heavy on our second album. It felt too heavy.
How was the reception of the second album? Do you remember much?
Yeah. I think it was pretty good. It was pretty good because of Obak, Bhalobasha, but there were really hard numbers as well, right?
অনেকগুলো নিয়তি কেউ নেই একা একটার পর একটা
ফাড়ায় ফেলছে এরকম আর কি হ্যাঁ So I think that was a nice break from the first one, and then we felt that maybe we can tone it down a little bit. Maybe you should pay attention a little bit more to the sound of things.
Is it because you moved to Soundcheck? Was that part of the thinking?
No. I think we were tired of not having a good sound. কারণ সবসময় we struggled with সাউন্ডটা বের করা আমাদের জন্য একটা খুব ডিফিকাল্ট জিনিস ছিল। যেই সাউন্ডটা আমরা শুনছিলাম
because you're comparing it to
exactly ওই সাউন্ডটা পাচ্ছি না কারণ So then we had a shift. We toned it down a little bit, and we tried to make it a little bit more groovy. Groovy at the album, like, yeah. So I think that's what you hear. And that album, that the hard on a kishu, but it was groovy, better sound.
Because, and this is just an observation, there was more electronic elements in that.
Again, sound original. Sound because
Which all the other bands were doing as
Yeah,
well, because of sound, obviously a bit to save on cost.
yes. Costed thing, I think it was more
Sound.
sound. We were tired of not having good sound. It's like, why is it always, but we had good. I think it was just a challenging thing for the whole industry. They didn't know how to bring out good hard rock sound. It just wasn't there.
So when you were in the mastering table or listening to the song before it got pressed, was there a difference between what you heard in the room and what you initially heard in the
Like
in the
first
tapes?
first album, এই যে ডিস্টোরশনের সাউন্ডটা বের করবো, যে রেকর্ড করবো ফার্স্ট অ্যালবামে, we just didn't know we were not
No, of course.
we're not recording artists, right? We were players. So but then industry তে ছিল না কোনো
With knowledge ছিল না।
knowledge ছিল না. Mobin was the best bet we had, and Mobin did a great job eventually, but প্রথমে যখন ওই knowledge গুলা
Initial
stages ছিল, we all have to go through that suffering and pain. So the same thing continued, second album.
Although second album was sonically much
better because we have processors and all that, so we would processor থেকে directly যেতাম হয়তো আমরা, but ওই একটা ভালো একটা ক্যাবিনেট, ভালো একটা গিটার স্পিকার, একটা ভালো মার্শাল বা কোথাকে নিয়ে, ওগুলা সবসময় accessible ছিল না. So then on the third album, I we felt that sound was an important element we need to pay attention to. So let's take as a hardcore lump. Let's do something a little bit more digestible for,
which I think played to the hands of a more commercial label as well. Like they were more palatable to that kind of sound. Ek Dui hard rock number thaklo, but
yeah. So now we have looking back with all these albums, we have a wide variety of songs. So I think the third album was.
Third album, as you said, it was a seismic shift of sound for Warfaze.
Yeah.
It sounded very different. When the guitars were more sophistically placed, lesser innocence. When it sounds more arranged.
More arranged. So that is true, because it was not as spontaneous. It was more thought out, good or bad. There's sometimes good and bad in thinking out too much. Maybe a little bit more of formulaic. But I think overall it sounded still right to us. It's like,
it still sounds awesome. And I think Oshamajik, where you weren't part of, it continued a bit of that sound before it changed again for the album after. Because probably of the electronic drums. And did you play much bass in the third album, or was it partially electronic?
Electronic, no, it was electronic, but I would of course try it out. And it's like, I think this is what makes sense. And that's how we focus sound again. Sound focus, but bass line gulami Fuad সাথে বসে let's try that. That he would program that.
Monotar bassline is an absolute monster of a bassline.
It's not that difficult.
It's not difficult, but it is. First of all, it is very groovy. Second of all, it is moving all over the place.
Yes. So for a new bassist, it would be difficult. I can see that. But once you have had a few years of experience, it's a lot of movement.
It is driving the song.
So when we do it live, I sing in E
standard.
E standard. There's no দুইটা set of guitars like
we just
Polash sings in D sharp because he's always doing high, auto to low. So Roger সবসময় একটা ঝামেলার মধ্যে পড়ে. So it's like, I've started to do monotha in D sharp so that he can do his thing
and not change guitars.
So because he's confident, ওই কাজগুলো করার জন্য he has to be confident.
And it's interesting, Warfaze newer arrangements of monotha, when you sing with them, It's actually a distorted guitar playing the bass line together with the bass line rather than what it was recorded.
Yeah. I'm sure it has evolved.
Yeah, well, two guitarists, two fantastic
yeah,
guitarists.
yeah,
they
exactly.
wouldn't just stand there.
Exactly.
Another question was keyboards. Now, keyboards is Bangalir খুব favorite instrument, especially band music as we call it. But heavy metal musicians tend to look down on keyboards. But
Yeah.
hard rock has had keyboards in there, like the White
Deep
Snakes
Purple,
and the
Jump,
Purples and
yeah,
stuff. And first album, it was heavily Deep Purple because there was lots of organ.
Yes.
Lots of organ in there. But then we kind of didn't see much organ
Yeah.
in the second album. It was a bit more of synths and strings. Orchestration, of course, will come to some of your songs, which is just orchestrated songs. Third album was a bit more keyboard heavy, where Fuad Bhai came in. Whereas he was a guitar player,
Yeah.
but he was playing guitar synths and
He was programming and his ওই অ্যালবাম পুরোটাই তো Fuad actually he arranged. He took our ideas and he arranged with his ideas. So, but we're big. We will always be big in keyboards because it's such an integral
was that a
part.
concerted effort, Jina, to reach my audience? They want to, or
No, we just believe that the keyboard has a role,
has a place.
has a place and an important role because we were big fans of Deep Purple.
Yes.
And the stuff that John Lord was playing, right? It was fascinating for kids. So I think for Warfaze, keyboards will always be there.
Yeah. That's the reason I have a Hammond in here because I'm a big fan of John Lord. Yeah, because I always thought, how does this come into Warfaze? Because unless it's the Purple connection.
The Purple connection. The Purple that was like the first thing everybody would try to pick.
The Perfect Strangers is really break that. Oh my god. Let's not go into Purple Land. So Jibondhara releaser পরের reception do you remember anything? Because it's a bigger label, more commercial angle, and as you said, the sound
cleaner sound
went through a bit of a shift.
Yes. So again, জীবনধারাটা আমি 95 তে চলে আসলাম ইউনাইটেড স্টেটসে, তারপরে 6 মাস পর ফেরত আসলাম জীবনধারা করার জন্য। জীবনধারা করে I went my merry way.
The usual.
Right? Because তখন তো আসলে কমিউনিকেশনটা তখনও হয়নি, ইউটিউব তখনও হয়। We were just Netscape তখন মাত্র বাড়িয়েছে আর কি। হ্যাঁ, we were.
Did you sign a contract for Jibondhara? Do you remember?
I'm sure Jibondhara had a contract. I think starting Obak Bhalobasha, we started to have contracts. Just প্রথমটা Warfaze,
no one cared.
No one cared. Yes, like we didn't even know if where it was going, right? But yeah, later on, contract গুলো ছিল. But Jibondharaর পরে, when I came back, Bangladesh, there was a huge gap. I came back after 9 years.
Oh. So you never got to perform any Jibondhara songs live?
No, not well until later, like
until much later.
Much later, right? But when I came back, that's when I saw a huge transformation. Warfaze, just status of the band, everything, and so totally enjoyed that. কিন্তু ওই সময়টাতে যোগাযোগটাও কম ছিল. I was busy with life, and so সবসময় মিউজিক করছি. Played other things, started playing lead guitar instead anything but bass, right? So and then at some point, this was 2005. Yes, this was 2005. Starting 2001, I started playing flamenco. So it's been about 4 years now. Yeah, so it's taken me a while because again, our সময়টা কম.
Yeah,
I have to be disciplined, but I do have a goal with it. Niloy bhai je jinishgulo bajaye gechen, a lot of it is classical and has flamenco elements to it. But flamenco is a is a very, I'm not inspired by Gypsy King. Nilo Bhai are playing Gypsy Kings, and they do a lot of Rhumba, right?
Yeah.
So actually, that's all they do, Rhumba. And Rhumbar মধ্যে বিভিন্ন speed flavor দিয়ে beautiful songs. তখন আমাদের মাথা খারাপ হয়ে গেছিল first time শুনছি Gypsy Kings. So I always had that in my head that that's what I want to play at some point. And so starting 2001, I've been trying to play it. Rhumba is an easier form, but once you get into Bularia, Soleil, অনেক ধরনের form আছে, Cladanya, ওই formগুলোতে then it becomes quite a bit more difficult. So anyway, we'll talk about that.
Huh? Cool. And also Jibondhara, we had a new member, which is Fuad bhai.
Fuad.
Jodio, I saw the album sleeve for Obak Bhalobasha. I think he did music or he did a tune somewhere.
I think Bondi Niyoti.
Bondi Niyoti is probably Fuad bhai's. Yeah. So Fuad bhai and Warfaze, how did that happen?
So Jibondhara যখন আমরা we had the shift in sound, Fuad was our natural choice. তখন Russell ছিল না তো আমাদের সাথে. Russell was in the United States. So Fuad was as talented, being the talented musician. Of course, we had all the confidence that he can pull this off, and he did. But then after that, আমার প্রেজেন্সটা ছিল না because I left for almost 9 years before I reconnected. তো Fuad কতদিন ছিল আমি actually I don't remember কতদিন ছিল.
He was there for one more album.
And then he had to and I don't know the reasons.
No, that's okay.
He
But
had to leave.
Getting Fuad bhai into Jibondhara. Was he always part of your circle? Like, were you seeing him play?
Yeah. So Fuad, actually, in Dhaka, Rockstrata, Aces.
He was with Aces.
Romel, Fuad was with Aces. We had such এত ক্লোজ নেট একটা সম্পর্ক আমাদের যে প্রথম অ্যালবামে তুষার গাইতে চাইলো, এটা আমাদের দ্বিধাও হয়নি যে তুষার গাবে না এই জিনিসটা। হ্যাঁ, তো এরকম একটা অ্যাপ্রোচ আমাদের সবসময় ছিল, এখনো আছে। লাইক আমরা যখন অ্যানিভার্সারি গুলো করি, সবসময় আমরা অ্যানিভার্সারি গুলো একটু ডিফারেন্টলি করতে চাই। 25th anniversary was a little bit different from 30th. And 40th anniversary, the budget allows. One of the things আমি আর টিপু কথা বলি সেটা হলো যে can we do a historical approach to the presentation? Like 85 থেকে 84 থেকে what happened, যে ব্যান্ডগুলো থেকে, it was not an isolated event for Warfaze. We did well because of all these 4 bands playing together. We learned from each other. We took help from each other. And so going back to your question, Fuad was already part of all of us.
Gotcha.
All of us were part of all of us, right? And so he was a natural fit with his talent of playing and everything, natural fit to help us lead that album, arrangement-wise.
And that's probably a question for Fuad bhai, who I want to get on this show at some point.
Okay.
Although he will not want to talk. How did he end up playing guitar synth and being a guitarist? Like, what drove him into playing?
Yeah.
Was it Warfaze wanting a more synthy sound and he being okay to experiment, or did he suggest, hey, why don't I?
No, I think we were always, like we were talking, keyboard synth is always a big part of Warfaze and always will be, because it's in our DNA. And like I'm a prothom thekei, eta korchi. And Russell wasn't there. Musically, note selection and everything, I think our confidence was on Fuad, nobody else. Romel wasn't there, right? Romel, the next guy we would যদি Russell না থাকে, Romel কে নিয়ে কাজ করি অনেক সময়, and I have huge confidence in Romel. Fantastic player, right? So it's a one-man show. So the natural choice was just from musicality. আমাদের musicality টা বুঝবে. It was a little different. Every band has a little different sound, right? So I can't think of anybody else who could have done it. Yeah.
And for a guitar player to pull that off, that is
Yeah.
massive
I see him as a music
He's a
director.
He's a complete
Yeah,
musician.
yeah, a complete musician. He's a director. So yeah.
So going on from there, you took a big hiatus from music. I think from Jibondhara.
Yes.
And then you came back from a recording point of view with Romel Babna Russell, RBR.
2008. Yes.
Eight,
So 2008. Actually, it was a interesting story. So I did not meet Romel in Dhaka.
Yeah, I saw this somewhere. You met him.
ঢাকায় আমি
Yeah.
রোমেলকে মিট করিনি because again I was in seclusion to begin with, and রোমেল তখন ওরা সবাই সাথে সিলেটে শো টো করছে সবাই, হ্যাঁ, চারটা ব্যান্ড মিলেই করতেছে, কিন্তু কিন্তু I was missing in that scene because I was busy with number one Fuad, and number two I just wasn't, my head wasn't
In
that. I mean, my head was always in music but not in that like being pulled in that. I want just to mentality to children because of death of my brother, right? So Romel came meet করছি আমি Dallas actually. So I heard of Romel. রাসেলের সাথে সবসময় যোগাযোগ ছিল। রাসেল বলছে যে ভাইয়া তো আছে Dallas আপনি, you know. So I took the initiative actually to meet him. And I met him, and
then you were floored.
and then I was totally floored যে এই লোক এর সাথে পরিচয় হয়নি কেন আমার আগে, হ্যাঁ, আচ্ছা। And then we decided to do an album. রোমেলকে তখন কিন্তু মিউজিশিয়ানরা চিনতো, শুনছে, কিন্তু in general population দেখে নাই কখনো রোমেলকে, হ্যাঁ। So we wanted to bring him to the forefront. ঠিক আছে, তোমার এই কাজগুলো মানুষের দেখা, you know, we need to present you. So RBR এর content gula, you know, mostly again, you know, I provided that. But as far as the arrangement goes, entirely Romel. We wanted Romel, and Romel was the dominant force in the presentation. Yeah.
There's one call out from that. There's fantastic songs in that album, but Jolly Done. Of course, there probably is a back history to the lyric,
Yeah.
but from a tuning point of view, from a sound production point of view, the modulation that you do in the chorus is outrageously beautiful. How did you write that? Like, do you remember?
So, even the tune wise.
Yeah.
So, Romeler initial একটা tune ছিল, and মাঝখানের পার্টটাতে actually I changed it.
Yes.
I thought it would create that contrast. So I don't know, I just felt that way.
Because আপনার writing এর মধ্যে অনেক দেখা যায় you play with same জায়গায় you are playing with major and minor together.
Yes,
just to bring that ebb and flow. Was that মানে প্রথম দিকে কি এটা এমনি হয়েছিল এবং পরে you made a conscious effort of bringing it in, or is it just the way you tend to write with the emotions? And
I think second album Obak Bhalobasha যখন, that was I think the first one that had it very explicitly, just major minor shift. I don't remember exactly how I came to that, but do I always play with it now? Probably not, because I've done enough of that.
RBR আমি খুব একটা শুনি না, but Warfaze অনেক.
Warfaze হয়তো first album ছিল মনে হয় না।
ওই
second album,
not as much as the second album.
Yeah. First album, you will hear a lot of diminished chords.
Probably that's a Mamstein thing.
Because that was something we were playing with, and it's like, well, plus also it lets you shift scales. You can easily go, you know, with diminished. You can shift,
modulate into something else.
Something else. So that was interesting. So we took the first album অনেক ছিল. Second album, I think Funky জিনিসের মধ্যে I think it was just Obak Bhalobasha, major minor shift ছিল. Third album, I thought it was nothing too drastic.
No, third album, as you borrowing your words, it was more.
Yeah, we toned it down. Rubbi.
I don't think it was formulaic. You used the word formulaic.
Yeah.
I don't think it was How would you know the formulaic? You haven't done it once.
Well, একটু formulaic. আমাদের যেমন ধরো RBR একটু formulaic. কিভাবে বলি? And personally speaking, I probably never do that again. Which is, I like it to be spontaneous. If it is 7 minutes song, let it be a 7 minute song. আর ফর্মুলা কিভাবে এই এলেতে they have a formula.
Yeah, of course.
They have a 3.5 minutes to 4.5 minutes. And if you're more than that, you're probably stretching it too hard. Yeah. So there was that influence from actually Russell. Don't make it too long. Yeah. So we had to take to formulate. I did not let my emotion drive it.
ছাঁচের মধ্যে ফেলতে হয়েছে।
হ্যাঁ, ছাঁচের মধ্যে ফেলতে হয়েছে আর কি। তো সেই হিসাবে ধরো জীবনধারা একটু formulate compared to second album.
হ্যাঁ, ওটা তো অফকোর্স মানে ওখানে তো 7 মিনিট 8 মিনিটের গান আছে যেখানে
ভালোবাসা it's like senselessly long.
চলছে, হ্যাঁ, চলছে। That's very interesting. We'll go to the last bit, which is your current iteration. Like, are you doing more stuff with Romel, Babna, and Russell, or are you doing? I heard you're doing some translation projects and things. Like, what's happening now with you and music?
So I have a few things. Of course, flamenco is always at the. I mean, অন্য কিছু না করলেও প্রতিদিন flamenco নিয়ে বসি. It's just something I cannot stay away from. And I know it's, even for musicians, I think it's a little stodgy. But not everybody can take it. So কিছু artist, যেমন Vicente Amigo বা Gerardo Núñez, ওই টাইপের মানুষজনের কাজ is palatable. Like they have toned it down to a point where people can find melody in it. Yeah. But if you listen to Paco de Lucia, whom I love to death, he's not, he passed away. But to me, he's like the golden standard.
The epitome.
The epitome. Golden standard of playing flamenco. But he's like heavy metal of nylon string. So ওই কাজগুলো আমি ধরো contextualize করতে পারি. Remember, if we're talking about contextualizing, আমরা যখন Warfaze heavy metal hard rock করছি, mostly hard rock, right? ওইটা কিন্তু আমরা organically, naturally contextualize করছি, consciously করিনি। কিন্তু এটা হয়েছে because of our background. রবীন্দ্রনাথ শুনে বড় হয়েছি, so এটা naturally হয়েছে। এখন ওই contextualizationটা আমার চেষ্টা করছি আর কি, যে কিভাবে ওভারডু না করে bring it into আমাদের classical, আমাদের হয়তো কাওয়ালি, আমাদের I hear these things in my.
So you're trying to fuse
those things, but I need some young talented musicians যারা west east দুইটাই পারে, and I found a few.
That's your current project.
So I want to work with them. I want to, যেহেতু ইউনাইটেড স্টেটসে থাকি, ইন্ডিয়ান কমিউনিটি থেকে, পাকিস্তানি কমিউনিটি থেকে, বাংলাদেশি কমিউনিটি থেকে I'm trying to pull হাই ভালো লেভেলের মিউজিশিয়ানদেরকে পুল করা আর কি। সেটার জন্য আমার নিজের একটা প্রেজেন্টেশন থাকবে, আর কাজ করবে কেন, রাইট? সো বেলায়েত হোসেন খানের ছেলে হেদায়েত, ও থাকে ইয়াতে ম্যানহাটনে। I think he is willing to work. তো ওকে নিয়ে আসতে চাই। মাসুককে ইন্সপায়ার করছি একটু উদটা পিক আপ করতে। So he's working on it. আমি ফ্লামেঙ্কো নিয়ে আসবো। We'll slowly bring in একটা খুব ইয়াং ছেলে, গহন নাম, I like him. অনেক কিছু করতে পারে, ওর ভয়েস দিয়ে, বাঙালি ছেলে, বার্কলি থেকে পাশ করা, স্কুল অফ মিউজিক বার্কলি। So he can bring international elements, and Hidayat can bring the Indian connection. And কিছু তবলচি আছে, ওরা মানে হেদায়েতের সাথে জাকির হোসেন ওই কানেকশনটা ছিল আর কি। সো ওর থ্রুতে you can bring some. So ওই জিনিসগুলো মাথায় আছে। But I want to do like I want to start with something catchy. হয়তো আমরা একটা জিপসি কিংসের একটা আদলে কিছু একটা, হয়তো একটা দুইটা তিনটা সেতার, উদ, ফ্লামেঙ্কো, গিটার দিয়ে কিছু একটা যদি পুল করতে পারি, a bigger community of Southeast Asians like Indian, Pakistan, Bangladeshi, then you have something that can organically grow in the society. And this is in context of North America. বাংলাদেশের কন্টেক্সট ডিফারেন্ট, কিন্তু হিয়ারিংটা কিন্তু চেঞ্জ হয়েছে সবার। 20 বছর 30 বছর আগে যে জিনিসটা তুমি দিলে অড লাগতো শুনতে,
সেটা এখন হয়তো
অড লাগবে না। সো কন্টেক্সচুয়ালাইজেশনটা অতটা ডিফিকাল্ট হয়তো হবে না। তো সেই জিনিসগুলো কাজ করার জন্য সময় দরকার,
আপনার তো সময় নেই।
সময়টা কম বাট তারপরও সম্ভব, হ্যাঁ, বাট আমি সেটা করতে চাই, so that's what I see myself in the future, not so much so এটা একটা কাজ। ওয়ারফেজের সাথে কাজ করছি, আমার নিজের সোলো অ্যালবামের কাজ করতে চাই রাসেলকে দিয়ে। আরবিআরটা আপাতত একটু স্থগিত, বাট I'm actually কম্পোজিশনের অভাব নাই, সো আমার একটু ফুয়াদকে দিয়ে একটা কাজ করে চাই অ্যাকচুয়ালি। ফুয়াদের ডিরেকশনে I want him to be back like in the music industry and perhaps help him with an album. এগুলো সব এতে প্যারালালি হবে। রাসেলকে একটা অ্যালবাম করাবো with his push, ফুয়াদকে একটা অ্যালবাম করবো with his push, so the flavors are going to be different,
vastly different.
yeah,
because they have also changed as musicians by now.
Exactly. আর ওয়ারফেজের সাথে করলে তো ওয়ারফেজ has their own flavor. এই আর কি, বাট আমার বিগেস্ট পুশ আমি সাকসেসফুল মনে করবো যদি if I could leave behind a good blend of flamenco classical or flamenco something. I just think that it's such a rich texture of things. It's a difficult art, but আমাদের নেইবারদের সামনে মাথা উঁচু করে দাঁড়াইতে হলে we have to do something significant. We can't always follow.
Put the effort in to be at that level, exactly, to be considered.
Yeah,
as well.
We can't always follow and be, you know, do. There is a space for everything, right? I think if you want to matha uchu kore daraite hole, you have to present something that's significant.
Current state of musicians, are you aware? Do you follow much? What's in your playlist right now? What have you heard in the last 2 days? If you have heard any music.
I have not, but I've been sleeping a lot, you know. But now our playlist, I'm totally disconnected from everything else except, as you may suspect, flamenco, because I have such. আমি 10-12 ঘন্টা at the minimum engineering করি, বাসায় এসে রেস্ট নিয়ে, then I have to really focus the next 1 or 2 hours that I have, and I have a plan, like আমি এই কাজগুলো করতে চাই in the next 5 years, and I have to develop in a certain way. Okay. And so অনেক কাজ করা যায়, ওই কাজগুলো করলে আবার যে significant কাজগুলো করতে চাই ওগুলো হবে না, so I'd rather not do any work and spend that time towards that thing that I want to do. Yeah. So, and I don't do it for money, right?
No, of course.
Not. So it has to mean something for me.
The factor of cover songs, this comes up a lot nowadays. How do you view someone covering your song? Do you take pride that someone has taken their time off and taken their talent and singing one of your songs, or do you think no, it should be left to the original and the original should not be changed and that kind of stuff?
I encourage actually when people write to me ganta korte chai cover, like them wholeheartedly I give them permission, because it is amar jonno it is very flattering, and they have chosen that song. I don't think about business, money, expect চিন্তাই করি না.
Namely, from an artistic point of view, you are absolutely open.
Yeah. It's just the fact that they have chosen to do that makes me happy, and so I'm not judgmental. Somebody actor presentation থাকবে different, and yeah, so that's my position. It's like,
do you go around looking for other people's presentation unless someone gives it to you?
I normally don't. But normally it comes to me. Somebody sends it to me. It's like, hey, I'm writing next and like, oh, that's interesting. Like Obak Bhalobasha অনেকগুলো তো cover হয়েছে, and then somebody sent me Tashfi's version, and I think I loved it. I loved Tashfi's.
It's a very different voice.
I didn't have to actually think that Obak Bhalobasha can be done that way. And of course she has a wonderful voice, but just heard the gospel type singing যেভাবে করছে. So somebody else wanted to do Obak Bhalobasha. I proposed to her that maybe since your strength is classical, maybe you can do a classical interpretation of it. I'm curious how you would do it, because Tashvi surprised me. It's like, yeah, okay. could do that way.
I feel Obak Bhalobasha should have a Philharmonic version at some point.
Yeah. Well, that's I think Coke Studio version was sort of a blend of many different things, and আমি নিজেও ভাবছিলাম ওই Coke Studio version তোমার আগে যে I wanted to do an orchestral version, and then Coke Studio happened, so maybe we'll give it a gap, and then we'll see how else it can be interpreted.
Well, next time you're in Melbourne, we'll see if the Melbourne Philharmonic is up.
Hey, there you go.
All right, we're at the very tail end of this beautiful discussion. I'll go with a bit of a quick fire round.
Achha.
You don't have much to think about.
I won't do well.
First album, favorite 2 songs from the first album. 5 seconds.
একটি ছেলে বসে আছি।
Second album.
সেকেন্ড অ্যালবাম অবাক ভালোবাসা, একের আগে দুই যে সত্য। থার্ড অ্যালবাম জীবনধারা ধূপছায়া।
Why didn't you sing Dhuk Chaya? Why did Sanjay Bhai sing Dhuk Chaya?
I think he wanted to do it. You may like Babna bhai apne shopper nichen.
Okay, so same type of question. 2 favorite guitar solos from each album. The first album.
First album, I would say again, I loved একটি ছেলে যে you know আর of course বসে আছি।
Okay, so similar.
সেকেন্ড অ্যালবামে তো of course অবাক ভালোবাসার লিডটা যেটা করছে, আর let's see what else was on the second album.
অন্ধজীবন?
অন্ধজীব রাসেলের উপরে অ্যালবামের সবকিছু অ্যাকচুয়ালি it was too good.
Stellar.
Yeah, stellar.
Third album?
Third albumে let's see জননীটা nice lead. What else?
Jibondhara?
I thought there was something else that I liked better.
Sorry, I'm just saying.
Yeah. No, yeah. I have to think about it.
Do you want to see the track list?
Yes. Well, give me the track list. Yeah, because I don't always remember what we had.
Another one. Other favorite songs. So 2 songs from each of the other bands who were also playing during that time. So I'll go with the names. Feedback. 2 songs.
Oh, feedback era. I'm trying to remember. Actually, অনেক 87 এর সময়, you know, আমার বোনের বিয়ের সময় অনেক শুনতাম feedback আর কি। হ্যাঁ, let's see. Oh man, I'm drawing a blank because there's so many.
We can come back to it.
Acha,
that's fine.
No. Give me a little time. Let me remember those lyrics and that come to me. Tomar Chithi. Beautiful song. It's a beautiful song. And then ওই অ্যালবামেরই
এটা উল্লাস না? চিঠি উল্লাস?
Remind me some of the Udashim on it. Yes, absolutely. That's true. But the whole album, actually, I loved it. Ullash, I think.
Ullash,
yeah.
Feedback কি খুব একটা ফলো করা হয়েছে আপনার? After Ullash?
আমি আসলে feedback follow করিনি, but Babu Bhaier actually has a wonderful chord transitions, right? যেটা নীলয় দাসের গানগুলোতে উনি করছে অনেক, and he's a master of it, and so that sort of it catches my ears.
His chord flow is very different. Feelings, 2 songs.
Feelings. ফিলিংসের গানগুলোর মধ্যে ছিল একটা যে ওই দূর আরে ওই গানটা
এটা অনেক আর্লি অনন্য অ্যালবাম।
হ্যাঁ, পরের অ্যালবামগুলো শোনা হয়নি আমার, কিন্তু
মানে তারায় and stuff, the ones
আচ্ছা জেমস ভাইয়ের নগরবাউল, আচ্ছা
sorry, they went through so many names.
হ্যাঁ, তারায় of course it's a beautiful song. তারপরে জেমস ভাই তো অনেকগুলাই গান সুন্দর আসলে। গানটা কি ছিল ঝাঁকানাকা ঝাঁকানাকা
Mirabai.
মীরাবাই হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ that catches my ears হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ
LRB.
LRB of course সেই তুমি এটা একটা আর হাসতে দেখো এটা আমার প্রিয় গান আমি অ্যাকচুয়ালি হাসতে দেখো অনেক সময় কভার করি Yeah.
Mines.
প্রথম প্রেম আর ফিরিয়ে দাও
Any call outs from any of these bands and how they inspired when you were writing or when you were
প্রথম প্রেমটা was প্রথম যখন অ্যালবামটা করেছে মাসে প্রথম প্রেমটা was it stood out just the way it was composed and everything. I think Shavin Bhai's composition and I did not know that for a long time Shavin Bhai's composition but that's one of my favorite songs that আমি cover করি এখন তো আরো বেশি because
Of course.
yeah
the very last, just one or two sentences about your Warfaze colleagues that you shared albums with. Something for Sanjay Bhai, or what do you think?
like I was
Sanjay
saying that আমাদের প্রথম অ্যালবামটা successful হওয়ার পিছনে every one of the members had something to contribute and like I was giving an example আমি একটা কম্পোজিশন একভাবে করলে ফ্ল্যাট করছি হয়তো Sanjay would take it and it would make it interesting like বসে আছে high and low and then একটি ছেলে শেষে স্ক্রিনটা এগুলা আমি করিনি এগুলা Sanjay add করছে right and it added all the flavor that was needed to make those songs successful so you could say they all participated in the composition right and then the rest of the playing Russell playing of course egula beautiful and I want to say something about the family of Warfaze artists right আমাদের সেটা একটা চ্যালেঞ্জ সব সময় ছিল to retain people right because আমরা যেহেতু professionally করিনি জিনিসটা at least in the beginning so we had to look for our own careers and everything right that challenge I think was turned around and the credit goes to Tipu. He turned it around that challenge to our advantage actually. ওটা আমাদের চ্যালেঞ্জ ছিল but that's also our advantage because যাদেরকে পিক করা হয়েছে they were themselves very unique people, unique artists, very qualified people. তো ওরা যখন ওদের এলিমেন্ট গুলো ঢুকাইছে it always created a new variation. Now there's always going to be একটা বিতর্ক থাকবে যে না এটা এরকম হলে ভালো এটা এরকম but ultimately যেটা হয় যে they added their elements and they were all when they split and were their own artists they were themselves an iconic artist নিজেরা ছিল আর কি হ্যাঁ so সেখানে বালম হোক অনি হোক সুমন হোক they all significant artists by themselves right so when they did their thing a stacking up of layers of different artists they had a pool for different generations also এখন পলাশ যে গানগুলো করছে পলাশের একটা generational pool আছে হ্যাঁ or generation
that's how you live 40 years
exactly
as a band
exactly so that's what happened is the very challenges that we had turned out to be our advantages and so we look at it that way it's like so we welcome new artists that are talented and they always add a new element and as long as it makes sense it's always adding to Warfaze so that's how we look at it
at the very end and this is a section I called Musos asking Musos so I reached out to some of your old friends to send some questions for you this particular question he has asked me to not name him and asked you to
figure who it may be
yeah
oh man
so this question is apparently there was a show jekhane Warfaze Whitesnake is still of the Nightwoods and you walked off the stage
yeah
why did you walk off the stage
so at the time there's probably
do you know who has asked this question
probably from Gowal
no
acha anyway
Arshad bhai
Arshad acha so I think I perceived the lyrics as vulgar
okay
yeah somehow at that time I was very religious minded and I was like why are we singing songs with Azubazi and I told them I won't play that song and they still pulled it on me on stage and I left my guitar and slammed walking away Yeah.
They kept doing the song?
So somebody else picked it up. Tushar actually came and picked it up, right? So I gave them hard time because I was very, like opinionated about certain things, and if they were scared always. But if so now I apologize to them. Sorry that I did that. But yeah, so it happened.
Okay, the next one is actually asked by Angshu Bhai, who's in here, as how did you used to perceive lyrics of the other bands who were also releasing albums during Warfaze, when Warfaze were releasing albums? Look at it from a commercial angle, like the Miles LRB feedback. Like, did you ever? How did you perceive the lyrics? Because you're also.
Now I thought we had quite a few good lyricists, likto. Everybody has their own space. You can take it as long as you're writing from your heart, then it makes sense, right? Even buffoonery. If you present a joke or a buffoon properly, that can be a thing of beauty, right? So I always look at it that way. You have to present things wholeheartedly, and it would make sense. So our lyrics, of course, is very different from how Kolkata থেকে যে lyrics গুলো আসে, and that also fascinates me, the way they write. Other মাথার space কিন্তু অন্য জায়গায়. It's the way they talk. And one thing I try to practice, sorry to digress question, is that when you talk, try to speak articulately and poetically. That way it becomes a second nature. When you write, you don't have to think about writing it poetically. It just comes out that way, right? I think Kolkata এটা করে ওরা. But we write very differently, the Dhakai. But I like both styles.
But going back to what was getting released around that time, did you perceive the lyrics any differently, or did you think of anything of note?
No, I did not feel. I mean, I wrote my own things, right? And it was probably content-wise একটু different ছিল হয়তো. But I I loved our lyrics. But I don't know if that's what you're asking. Yeah.
I'm just trying to get your view of any other lyrics that was coming out.
Recent lyrics গুলো তো আমি দেখিনি আসলে, বাট ওই সময় যখন আমরা লেখালেখি করছিলাম তখন মাইলস, নিলয় দাস, বাচ্চু ভাই, সবার যারা কাজগুলো হচ্ছিল, I love the lyrics.
Any questions from the crowd?
আমার একটা কোশ্চেন আছে।
আচ্ছা,
আমরা তো আপনাদের গানের সাথে বড় হয়েছি, মানে দিস ওয়াজ লিটারালি পার্ট অফ আওয়ার ব্রিদিং দ্যাট টাইম। আমি দেখি আমার 10 বছরের বাচ্চা, তার বাংলাদেশি কানেকশন আছে, ইভেন অংশুর বাচ্চা, আমাদের অনেক ইভেন ইউএসএ তেও কিছু আছে আমাদের ফ্রেন্ডের ছেলেরা, তারা দেখি তারাও এখন আপনাদের গান শুনে মানে লিটারালি গেট হাইলি ইনফ্লুয়েন্সড। সো ওইটি আমি চিন্তা করি যে এই 40 বছর পরে ওরা কিভাবে, ওদের এখন এড শেরানের যুগ, অথবা যারা মেয়েরা তারা টেইলর সুইফট, ওরা একটা টোটালি ডিফারেন্ট জনরা শুনে, কিন্তু ওয়ারফেজের গান এখনো ওদেরকে এত টানে কেন? মানে আপনার কি মনে হয়?
That's an interesting question. I think কন্টেন্টটা হয়তো কিভাবে বলি,
It's not kid-friendly content, by the way.
No, it is not kid-friendly content, but the kids are smart now. I think আমাদের কন্টেন্ট গুলা হয়তো আমাদের সময়কার জন্য একটু কিভাবে বলি ডিফারেন্ট ছিল, বা একটু হেড অফ টাইম ছিল হয়তো আর কি। হ্যাঁ, example. So when we were writing about the nature of reality, when we were writing about the nature of knowledge, I don't think socially we were there to have that as a content, everyday content. But when you look at YouTube now, that's all they talk about, right? So when the kids are in that content, they're like,
something is clicking.
These guys are talking about this, and this is what I'm looking at, right? আমরা যখন ছোট ছিলাম, আমরা ওই কন্টেন্ট গুলা তো করি নাই, হ্যাঁ, কিন্তু আমি লিখছি ওগুলা because that's all that I had in my head, right? So I think that ওই স্পেসটাতে এখনকার ছেলেপেলেরা ওই স্পেসটাতে ঢুকছে অফ কনভারসেশন। কারণ আমার ছেলেপেলের সাথে যখন আমি কথা বলি, and আমরা যখন ওই বয়সে ছিলাম, it's not the same level. Yeah. So I think that may have something to do with it directly.
That's it. Thank
All
you
right.
very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.
Always.